The idiot Lord marries 5 beautiful goddesses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276, Outbreak of the Undead 5. Alex's body shook from the pain as he rolled on the ground, but he quickly got up and healed his body while also healing Neon's body. Divine blessing. Neon felt his strength increasing and his body seemed to be filled with vigor. Professor, let's cast the dual spell, Alex suggested as he cast a barrier of light around himself, through which Neon continued to cast spells. Neon was speechless after hearing Alex's suggestion. For dual spells, both users must be compatible with each other and the difference in realm must not be large, otherwise if the spell becomes unstable, it may explode and harm the caster. I can carry the load. Let's not waste time with useless thoughts, Alex pleaded. But what spell do you want to try? Neon asked. Let's cast the fire and ice spell. What? Neon almost screamed and looked at Alex in shock. Mixing two elements of opposite nature was quite suicidal. The Death Knight was already after them. Neon and Alex both flinched from his attack and both flew into the sky. Neon knew that Alex was quite capable, but he was honestly a little scared by Alex's suggestion. He was saving his ultimate attack for Lich. That was why he was trying to kill the Death Knight by saving mana, and Alex's suggestion had given him a way to defeat the Death Knight without wasting all of his mana. Alex thought the same thing as well. After finishing things here, he needed to do other things, so he couldn't afford to heal Neon fully and recharge her mana to the max, nor could he expend that much energy here. Alright, let's do it, Neon muttered, closing his eyes and starting to cast a spell as he tried to match Alex. Alex raised his hand and tried to keep up with Neon's pace. Alex knew that fusing spells wasn't easy, but for an experienced caster like him, this was nothing. He tried to fuse the spell with Neon. Alex cast an ice spell while Neon cast a fire spell. At first, both spells tried to compete with each other, but under Alex's mastery, they began to mix together. The white light brightened and a sphere of fire with an icy interior was formed. The Death Knight noticed the mana fluctuations and raised his chin slightly. The greenish flames in his hollow cavity flickered. He was a high-level undead and was a bit sensitive and had some intelligence compared to other undead. He raised his sword that was covered in a blackish aura to slash upwards. Ice flames, both Neon and Alex shouted. A huge sphere appeared with contrasting energy and was shot towards the Death Knight. A black sword ascended and collided with the sphere, but was completely outmatched and collided with a Death Knight. Silence. A column of flames rose from the ground and burst into waves of flames on the ground. The darkness covering the place was momentarily eroded by the attack. AUMM. The undead nearby collapsed and burned to ashes, and as the flames expanded, to everyone's surprise, they were extinguished and the flames froze. The epicenter of the attack was also frozen along with a pillar along with a Death Knight. A small red tint could be seen within the ice glacier, which began to enlarge, followed by a thunderous eruption. Boom. The ground shook and trembled. Even Celestine, who was fighting with another Death Knight, was taken aback by the spontaneous explosion that shook the place. The explosion leveled the place, turning all the vegetation into barren land. Neon nearly jumped in joy. We did it, Neon said gratefully, but frowned as she received no response. She looked around to see that Alex had already escaped out of nowhere, and a small voice lingered there. My work is done, I'm going back. Neon was confused by Alex's voice, but the confusion turned into shock when she felt a strong fluctuation. Her eyes widened as she looked back and saw something coming towards them, leaving behind a trail of light. Are they reinforcements? Swish. A cracking sound was heard, and everyone noticed a trail of fire moving forward and tearing the air before him like a meteorite. An arrow that split the sky and the earth descended from the sky, aiming directly at the Lich. The Lich was startled by the sudden attack that appeared out of nowhere and tried to defend himself, but it was too late, and the force imbued in the attack was too much for him. The arrow crashed directly into him and dragged him away without leaving anything behind. Another explosion shook the place, leaving behind a huge crater of nothing. Celestine, who finished off the Death Knight, looked at the figure of the man who appeared. Commander Zack. Their commander was a mythic-ranked archer, and many even referred to him as the divine archer in the fortress. Although it was a bit of an exaggeration and there were many archers better than him, his commander skills were no worse compared to others. Killing a legendary ranked Lich in one shot. Only their commander could do something like that. After Zack arrived, reinforcements came riding a tame beast and killing in their wake. Without the Lich, the stronger undead around them ceased to exist, leaving behind the lesser ones, who were eliminated quite easily. Neon was the first to appear before Zack, but his eyes did not reflect gratitude. "Commander Zack, thank you for saving us from the current situation, but let me ask you something. How is it possible that we weren't informed that this region is filled with undead? This place is too dangerous for students to take an exam." Zack listened to Neon's pain-filled words and frowned. "I sent a messenger to let them know that something strange was going on around here and that we had seen some undead. The situation wasn't that serious, which was why I left the decision up to the academy, but who knows if so many undead would rise up and attack today." Neon's expression distorted and she asked in a panicked tone, "What do you mean you sent a messenger? Did we receive one? Did anyone intercept it?" Zack and Neon spoke simultaneously. Beads of sweat formed on their foreheads. "We need to get the students out of here immediately," Neon muttered. "Let's take them to the fortress first," Zack advised. The order to retreat was announced soon after. Firstly, the students who were present would be quickly evacuated while the troops would search for the remaining ones. There were many missing and many of them were injured. There was an atmosphere of horror and panic as everyone's lives were in danger. Jeremy ran towards the figure standing atop the piles of bones. A murderous aura seeped out from her, sending a chill down the spine of everyone who tried to get close to her. Witnessing the scene of the massacre caused by a beautiful lady was a horrifying sight for those who fawned over her. "Raya, I can't find Alex. He seems to have gone missing. I hope nothing bad happened to him," Jeremy said worriedly. "Don't worry, he'll be fine," Raya said as she looked into the depths of the forest. "Perhaps he has some loose ends to tie up." Chapter 277, Soul Exchange. While everyone was evacuating or receiving treatment, a certain figure slipped through the confrontation. Chilly winds blew and the darkness of the night was at its peak. The atmosphere was eerie, and the silence of the night was occasionally broken by the sounds of insects and the rustling of leaves. Amidst the darkness of the night, a shadow made its way through the trees, moving from one branch to another. As it passed through the trees, a gentle breeze blew and the leaves of the trees swayed back and forth. The winds were gentle but laden with cold, and an atmosphere of prolonged silence prevailed, as if announcing the arrival of a storm. Gentle winds brushed against his cheek as Alex walked deeper and deeper. "Is this how ninjas feel when they jump from trees? Why do I feel like I'm moving like a monkey instead of a ninja?" Alex whispered. "Host, please focus on what's ahead. Your relaxed mood might get you killed today. There is no plot armor for you and your luck is quite terrible compared to others. If you have no memories of your previous life, you are nothing more than cannon fodder. At least, this cannon fodder lives better than you, who are stuck in my head. Unlike me, what can you do? You can eat, drink, and enjoy beauties." Alex snorted and stared at the screen. Quest: investigate and eliminate the root cause of the current problem. Reward: 30 stat points. Failing to complete the task could affect not only Kinley but the entire world in the future. Alex received a notification during the battle with the Death Knight. His eyes nearly popped out of his head at the sight of the quest. 30 stat points meant 15 levels. At his current stage, even finding prey to kill was quite difficult for him, and this undead brought him nothing as he had no life force to convert into experience points. And besides, the task was of paramount importance. The goddess cannot interfere in this world, and in case of trouble, she can only give oracles that are too difficult to decipher. In a way, even if their daughters were killed, they would be unable to do anything and would just watch from the sidelines. Interfering in world affairs would result in them being severely punished and in severe cases, turned into mortals. But Alex was an exception. His presence was in itself a taboo, and after several experiments, although the goddess spoke directly to him and gave him some hints, no punishment was meted out. Still, for added safety, they decided to use this system to warn in case of trouble. And Alex could already imagine the gravity of the matter from the cause of the quest. Those stingy ladies wouldn't give a quest unless the future of the entire world was at stake. Alex's mana sensors could not only detect people but also detect anomalies in the flow of mana in a region. As the fight with the undead progressed, the first thing he did was to look for the necromancer who might have been hiding. But to his surprise, he couldn't find any necromancers within a 5-kilometer radius. Necromancers can summon undead and keep them alive until they run out of mana, but they can't use them to attack from a longer distance. Alex noticed a faint black miasma on the undead, and also noticed that many of them had rotting skin and looked as if they had been sucked dry. indicating that many of them died recently. It seemed that the miasma emanating from them had turned them into undead. Alex followed them on a sensor and searched for the location where the mace-tailed monkey chased him and found traces of miasma leading deep into the forest and was now following the trail. Although he was in a vast desert, he found that the place was rather quiet and devoid of creatures. The place should be filled with monsters and beasts, but it was rather empty. He guessed that most of them had either been killed or turned into undead. Alex, who was discerning his surroundings, suddenly felt strong waves of mana. His hearing perked up. "Someone is fighting up ahead," Alex muttered and sped through the dense forest. As Alex approached, his eyes widened in disbelief as he saw the scene of the ongoing battle. Before him, a lich was commanding his undead troops to fight the enemy, and it was none other than Hurt himself. What the hell? Alex's eyes locked onto Hurt, who was engaged in a bloody fight. His figure was disheveled and his body had many wounds while his clothes were in tatters. But more than that, the strength he was displaying was a legendary rank. Name: Hurt Seymour. Soul Swap. Class: Battle Mage. Talent: Void Interference. Potential: Superior. Alex was so stunned after witnessing the soul swap that the significance of void interference became dull before his eyes. He had studied many arts. He knew how to possess someone, but soul swapping was something that was beyond his wildest imagination. The information was completely different from what he had seen previously. Soul swap? What does it mean? Is it a talent, or is Hurt already dead and someone is residing in his body as a parasite? What if a man's soul had the power to change from one body to another? Alex wanted to scold himself for all those kinds of outrageous thoughts, and if he heard that from someone else, he might have beaten him up. Alex watched Hurt's movement trying to figure it out. The undead tried to attack Hurt but they couldn't reach him. The lich also fired many spells but none of them could break through Hurt's defense. Hurt raised his hand and fired huge bolts of lightning. The lich became alarmed and slammed his staff on the ground. Many undead rose from the ground in front of the lich and acted as barriers to try and protect him from being fried. Huge flashes of lightning descended upon them, and the bolts struck the undead in front of the lich, burning them to ashes. Shit, Hurt cursed in anger as he noticed that this attack was received by the lich's henchmen. Chapter 278, The Call of Pain. Alex noticed Hurt's frustrated expression. Void talents were the rarest of all. You could shape the space around you, and you could attack by breaking through the physical barrier by distorting the space surrounding the object. For example, if someone threw an incredibly large fireball the size of a planet at you, to destroy it you could simply form a black hole in the middle that would suck in everything you thought. You couldn't accomplish this kind of feat, even at Overlord rank. Although it allowed the user to attack by breaking through space, it still had one flaw: you couldn't shape the laws of space if the object was alive or composed of organic matter. So in a way, the lich used the undead as a meat shield, preventing Hurt from attacking the lich directly. Alex wondered if he should participate and help Hurt or if he should watch from the sidelines. He didn't know Hurt's nature or motives, and he didn't know if he would become an enemy or a friend, so he had to be cautious or else this guy might get rid of him. There is no heaven-defying genius who can reach legendary rank along with mastery of space. It's not some kind of novel, but real life, and even geniuses had some limits. The battle between Hurt and Lich was deadlocked, and neither of them were able to find a way out to destroy the other side's defense. Hurt knew that the Lich had the tactical advantage and could summon the undead endlessly. Hurt couldn't prolong the battle for long, but he was helpless as he couldn't get close to the other group. Hurt, who was attacking the undead coming towards him, sensed someone in particular and was momentarily caught off guard. Alex also noticed something strange about Hurt's behavior and suddenly heard a voice. "Alex, help me. We need to get rid of the lich and the trouble that awaits us." Alex's jaw nearly dropped to the floor. Telepathy. Is this guy a Saint Realm powerhouse? Alex's heartbeat quickened as soon as he heard telepathy. Only those who reached the Saint Realm could use telepathy, meaning this guy was at least at the Saint Realm, or at worst, he could be above it, which was quite absurd. No, it could be a skill or a spell. Alex shook his head trying to calm himself down. "Who are you? Are you a 20-year-old boy studying at the academy? Can't you put aside your questions for now? I'll die if this continues," a pained voice echoed in his mind. "Do you want me to help you? What if you were to kill me after everything was over to keep your secret? I'm sure you're no ordinary guy, and if you turn out to be a villain, doesn't that mean I'll be committing a grave sin? I promise I won't hurt you. You can rest assured. Promise me. I don't believe in false promises. Take an oath in the name of the goddess that you won't kill me or harm me in any way." "You?" Hurt felt furious at Alex's reckless words. Alex, you know that I can get you into trouble very easily and make you their target. The only reason I asked for help is to get rid of the curse. You have received strong blessings from the goddesses. Hurt spoke in an annoyed tone as he flew through the sky casting spells at the undead while many Steel One Seekers chased after him. You dare to threaten me? If you have the guts, you can try. I know my abilities, and if I want to leave, not even a mythic rank could catch me, Alex snorted. In terms of escaping, he was one of the best. After all, he tried to run away from the demon goddess of war many times. Hurt gritted his teeth in anger. Mana's oath was not so simple, and once he made it, he would be bound to it. There can be many scenarios where things go wrong, and in the case that Alex gets possessed by evil, he has to fight Alex, and wouldn't he be in grave danger at that point? Failure to keep the oath will lead to a miserable end. He was unlucky to be hit by the curses that were eroding his strength and consciousness. He was sure that if it were anyone else, he would have already fallen into the Lich's clutches. Alright, I agree to your terms, Hurt shouted as he flew through the air. Alex's lips curved upwards. He had already tied the rope around the scapegoat's neck. Alex shook the dust off his hand and stood up from the branch. He raised his hand and tapped his forehead. A small sword-shaped tattoo appeared due to Alex's touch, which began to fade away. After staying in the academy for a few days, in order to maximize the yield of his training, Alex had sealed his and Ridai's strength to the early master rank. Yes, he had been struggling while holding back even in the case of the legendary rank Lich earlier. At first, he was going to undo the seal, but after getting the quest, he was sure that there were bigger problems ahead and he had to save his strength for later. A surge of power erupted from Alex. A cracking sound was heard, every joint in his body trembled, and a feeling of euphoria took over his body. Alex's strength began to increase and eventually stopped at mid-epic rank. Name, Alex von Stan Species, human rank, mid-epic rank level. 4 EXP 150 HP 308/328 mana 610 840 strength 177 agility 174 stamina 170 vitality 164 magic 168 stat points 12 active skills, Eyes of Truth LV1, Mana Sensor, Emperor's Charisma, Emperor's Pressure, Goddess of Fortune's Blessing, Heal, Restore, Goddess Enhancement passive skills, Piercing Thrust LV. B. Heavy Iron Swordsmanship LV. B. Abyssal Slash LV. B. Great Martial Art LV. D. Powerful Punch LV. B. Spell, 5 Elements Breathing Technique LV. A. Kinley Knight's Swordsmanship E. Partial Concealment F. Alex looked at his stats with satisfaction. His rank may be epic, but his stat points were between the mid-range and maximum of Transcendent. If we compare it to his understanding, a normal legendary rank had 180 stat points in each and the stronger ones, a bit more. So he can at least take on the weaker legendaries, like the Lich. Only after experience did Alex know the true value of stat points. Without stat points, he would even have a hard time taking down a Transcendent rank. The goddesses were right to limit him, otherwise, if this continued, he might be able to defeat a Supreme at Mythic rank, due to additional stat points. Alex added 4 stat points to his magic and looked forward. Fire to the hole, Alex shouted and charged forward. Alex's body is covered in a bright light that shoots towards the Lich. Boom. An explosion rocks the entire place, blasting the undead away. Beams of light flashed through the air and bombarded the ground, creating a chain of explosions. Just before they could react, a massive 20-meter-tall sword soared into the sky and fell upon them. Hey. You've been wreaking havoc for a while now and I need to restrain myself and behave properly. Isn't this a blatant injustice? Slash. The massive sword swung horizontally, uprooting all the undead in sight before Alex was completely cut off. Alex pulled out the great sword and rested it on his shoulder, which seemed as light as a feather in his hands. Chapter 279, Sweeping Away the Legendary Rank Lich. Alex twisted his body and with strong momentum threw the huge sword towards the Lich. The Lich's eyes flickered and he drew all the nearby undead to stand in front of him. The greatsword rolled over them and crashed into them with a loud bang, like waves of the sea crashing on the shore. The greatsword emitted a bright golden light that enveloped the entire area. The entire area was illuminated as if it were daytime, which dispelled the darkness of the place. The blinding flash of light was enough to blind even Hurt, who closed his eyes in fear of going blind. The undead were rendered harmless and eroded by the bright golden light. As the light slowly dispersed, The lich crawled on the ground with burns all over his body trying to reach his staff that had fallen. His body was barely recognizable and his feet were shaking as he tried to get up. All the undead summoned by him were already scattered by the light. The lich looked around frantically and groaned miserably. Duush. The lich who had let his guard down suddenly saw a sword piercing through his chest. Sorry bro, better luck next time, Alex said with an amused smile. A bright holy light filled with holiness erupted from the sword, and a pillar shot out from the lich. The lich struggled to get out but was overwhelmed by Alex's bright light. A dark mist emerged from him which was cleared away by Alex, and the lich was finally easily defeated. Hurt landed next to Alex who watched him defeat the lich easily. Alex turned to see Hurt looking miserable. The wounds on Hurt were corroded by a miasma that seemed to be invading him and would lead to tissue decay if not treated properly. Let me heal you, Alex muttered and placed his hands on Hurt's shoulder. The wounded body was glowing from head to toe and large fumes were evaporating from his body. Alex first cleaned the wounds with holy power and then healed the wound. Were you bathing in dark power? How much miasma did you swallow? If I wasn't here present, you would already be dead and you might have lost more than one arm, Alex warned. His wounded lips twitched slightly as he spoke. If it weren't for inhaling so much miasma, did you think I would ask you for help? The holy power in your body is the purest of all I have seen. Only the Pope or the Saint have such powers. Alex's lips curved upwards at his boast. That means you've met the Pope, yes? No. Hurt shook his head and closed his lips. He was an inch away from digging his own grave, but he didn't know it was too late already. Tell me, are you Hurt or someone else who occupied Hurt by exchanging his soul? Hurt's eyeball opened wide and his face turned pale as a sheet of paper. His immediate reaction was to kill that man, but he remembered that he had made an oath. While he was taken by surprise for a moment, he felt a gentle pat on his shoulder and raised his chin to look at Alex. Danger. Danger. A warning siren sounded in his mind. How does a harmless bunny feel when it is abandoned in a cage occupied by a huge predator and it looks directly into its eyes with the intent to kill it? The feeling of despair, despondency, and sadness of not being able to see the next day flashed before his eyes. Countless emotions would pass through the rabbit's mind. The combination of these feelings could even confuse the harmless rabbit, as he would not be able to discern his own emotions. But one thing he was sure of was that death was standing in front of him and staring at him. That was the feeling Hurt was feeling. He was no stranger to this emotion as he had been through the feeling countless times, but was lucky enough to survive until today. But today might not be a lucky day, because before him stood someone who had gone beyond the realm of humans. It was not a battle of strength but rather a psychological battle. Hurt could see the strength of Alex's soul. In front of him stood a man with a cruel smile covered in a bloody aura from head to toe that was no less fearsome than a bloody demon. It wasn't a soul, but rather an impenetrable fortress that not even an overlord could put a scratch on, and on top of that, the bloody and disgusting aura that was engraved on his soul like a tattoo indicated the countless number of overlords crushed by him. His entire body trembled and his legs turned soft like jelly. He was already overwhelmed by Alex's bloody aura and knew that he didn't even have the chance to fight him, as Alex could kill him just by exerting his soul force. Alex stared at Hurt, who seemed to have lost the will to live. Just now, Alex let Hurt take a look at his soul, and seeing Hurt's reaction, he was certain that Hurt was able to catch a glimpse of things that lay deep within him that proved that Hurt was a powerhouse above the mythical realm. What he made was a battle between two souls that was quite dangerous, as the loser could be seriously injured if both sides fought seriously. Alex could engage in a soul battle only within a 5-meter radius, unlike the powerful one who could do this from long distances, so as soon as Hurt raised his head, Alex started the battle and gained the upper hand. Alex pointed his sword at Hurt's throat and said, "You've already witnessed something you shouldn't have witnessed. You have two choices. Either you die in peace or you reveal everything about yourself. I promise you that as long as you tell the truth and don't prove yourself to be an evildoer, I will turn a blind eye and not pursue the soul-swapping business." His dull, wounded eyes gleamed as he looked at Alex's sincere expression and laughed bitterly. In his 500 years of life, he had never thought that a brat who could have had a second chance like him would force him to his knees. Who knows, maybe the boy in front of him would turn out to be someone he knew from before. With this thought, Hurt told his story. Chapter 280, Soul Exchange. Seymour, now known as Hurt, was a powerhouse who reached the Holy Realm. He was one of the magicians who distinguished himself with his special magic, and together with his companion, They researched the creation of portals and other things. A Holy Realm powerhouse could live for around 400 to 500 years. Seymour, who was able to live for 400 years, tried his best to break through to the Supreme Realm, but all his efforts were in vain. Instead of breaking through, he suffered a backlash that caused all his hopes to be lost. He had dedicated his entire life to study and research, and he did not want to die without enjoying life. He did not want to die of old age, and so he tried to increase his lifespan in other ways. He searched for mystical herbs, natural treasures, artifacts, potions, and clues to anything that could prolong his life and restore his youth, but he found nothing. One day, while traveling, he heard a village boy asking an old man about the soul. Where does the soul come from and where does it go after a person dies? The topic piqued his curiosity and he started to think about it. What was the soul? Can there be living beings without a soul? What was it made of? Many useless questions like this resonated in his mind, but these useless things interested him a lot and he started to focus on them. In his researches he found that the soul is what gives the typical characteristic to a person. It is the very essence that differentiates one individual from another, which is endowed with basic attributes of living beings that are molded and adapted to a current vessel known as a living body. Each one had a different soul and he was impressed by the versatility of the soul. Does a soul that is born again and again live in a vessel, and if so, then how many lives can a person live? He couldn't figure out what happened to the soul after a person died and only knew from the holy book that the evil soul gathered in hell while the good soul went to heaven under the guidance of the goddess to restart a new life. A wild thought occurred to him, to use the laws of space to trap the soul of a dying person and transfer it into another's body. He knew that the ideas were rather childish and illogical, but wasn't the very concept of the soul and living beings illogical from the start? Why does the soul need to go to heaven or hell instead of going straight to another person? He wanted to try it but didn't have enough courage to do so. He devoted himself to researching day and night. He didn't mind breaking the taboo of discovering something he shouldn't. After all, he was already close to the end of his life. Being a Saint Realm powerhouse, he already had some understanding of the soul and his research dove deeper into the secret of one's essence. Although he discovered many things, he was not able to make groundbreaking discoveries that could change the entire world until one day, a tragedy occurred. One day, when he was experimenting with the laws and soul force by extracting his soul, a loud explosion occurred near his place which broke his concentration. The backlash was quite severe and he lost control over the soul force, which surged and spread throughout the place. The pressure from a Saint Realm powerhouse was enough to crush a transcendent rank and wipe out half of the city. Shortly after this, his consciousness faded into darkness, and after an unknown amount of time, when he woke up, he found himself in the body of a 12-year-old boy. He was delighted to find himself in a new body, but more than that, he was horrified to witness the tragic scene in front of him. Everyone around him died and the place was deserted. He wanted to live, but not at the cost of killing many. He felt guilty and thought of ending his life, but the thought stopped when he found the cause of the explosion that cut him off. He found their presence, those disgusting scum. Creatures of darkness. They were planning to form a sacrificial altar around this place and sacrifice the entire village. After that, he swore to kill them for revenge, and for that he needed to become stronger. At first, he thought that his soul had been transferred, but then he learned that his unhurt soul had become intertwined into one. Both their memories and personalities had mixed together, and when he searched for his own body, he found it lying lifeless in the laboratory. From that day on, he lived wounded and used all his knowledge to become stronger. He first eliminated those vile creatures, and after he grew older, he entered the academy to start his new life. But living among a bunch of kids jumping around like monkeys bothered him to no end, so he always kept a cold face. Alex blinked with a skeptical look after hearing the story. He was sure that the soul swap didn't happen because of Seymour's stupid accidents, and that there was a lot going on behind it. Hurt laughed bitterly seeing his reaction. You don't believe me, do you? You thought this happened because of that accident? You're way too conceited for an old man who lived for 500 years, old man. Alex laughed. What do you mean? Hurt asked with an uneasy expression. Do you even know the meaning of the altar of sacrifice? The altar of sacrifice sucks the soul of living beings and offers it to the god of darkness, Hurt replied. Alex nodded and explained, when you're engrossed in the experiment, the altar of sacrifice might be attracting souls around the area, and at that moment, the wide area spell might have collided with you, causing the pressure to explode and damage the spell along with the altar. It's possible that your soul was severely damaged and was on the verge of being torn away. At the same time, The others who might be on their way to the sacrifice might have returned to their bodies because of this. Your damaged soul couldn't fit inside your body and might have gotten mixed up with that child's name, Hurt. Hurt felt like the ground beneath his feet had sunk after hearing Alex's analysis. Elder, all of this happened because of coincidences and you have nothing to do with it. If soul swapping was as easy as it seems, then there would be a lot of things like this, Alex snorted. Alex looked at Hurt's melancholic expression and tried to reassure him, you don't have to be disheartened. Just live this new life properly, Elder. Hurt was pleased by Alex's words, but the term elder pierced his heart like an arrow. What elder? Are you even older than me? A person of your caliber could have lived 1,000 years. In terms of age, could you be my ancestor? Alex gritted his teeth in anger and spoke, emphasizing each word. I am not an old man and this is my actual age. My soul is stronger because I was accidentally struck by lightning and was blessed by the goddess. All the blood you have seen is because of the goddess of war. Don't think too much. My existence is something that little brain of yours can't muster the courage to acknowledge. My existence is beyond your understanding. Chapter 281, Confrontation Against the Creatures of Darkness. Hurt's lips twitched upon hearing Alex's words and thought the boy was trying to act cool and show off. When it came to showing off, he thought he was number one, but this boy was miles ahead of him. Alex and Hurt argued back and forth until Hurt couldn't take it anymore. He was still skeptical of Alex's identity. The boy's previous behavior made it difficult to determine his age. And even if the boy was only 19, how could he know so many things? Hurt felt like he was talking to someone who was a powerhouse rather than epic ranked and seemed to know the extent of the higher realm's power quite easily. What bothered him the most was that in every question she used the name of the goddess to dissuade him. Alex even said that they could test it if Hurt came to the church with him. If a scapegoat could be sold many times, Alex would have already tagged and sold it in the market many times. Alex was even able to find a mini angel sitting on his right shoulder whispering to him not to sell the goddess name because otherwise he would be attacked. In response to the cute little angel, Alex would simply look up to see if any lightning was coming his way, and seeing none, he would simply hit baby angel Alex and listen to baby devil Alex on his left shoulder. If Alex knew that the goddesses were furious in heaven and were eager to rain down lightning on him for his insolence but were forced to restrain themselves because Alex was going to engage in a very important battle ahead, Alex would have already shut his mouth with a padlock. Do you know where the sacrificial altar is? Alex asked. Hurt nodded and asked him to follow him. Hurt ignited small fireballs that revolved around him like small orbs. The light from the fireball showed the way through the forest, and they appeared in an area devoid of vegetation that was a few kilometers away from the fight site. As the duo walked, there seemed to be piles of bones and corpses of people, beasts, and monsters that seemed to be rotting in the open. Around the corpse floated black fumes of miasma. From time to time, Alex could hear a cacophony of bones that gave one a creepy feeling. The aura of death was around him and could give rise to undead automatically on several occasions. Alex assessed the situation. He recalled the horror stories about bloodthirsty evil monsters and ghosts. If this place can't be labeled as a horror scene, then Alex didn't know what place would qualify to be called haunted. His previous self might have wet his pants and been knocked unconscious just from the scene. The rotten, putrid stench assaulted Alex's nostrils. This place is a dangerous area. Should I clean them up? Alex muttered. No, let's leave it for later. The creature of darkness might get alarmed if we do something here, Hurt suggested. Good choice. You're officially qualified to be my assistant, Grandpa. Hurt almost tripped over the piles of bones. He suddenly had the feeling that staying with that stinking boy would be bad for his health, lest he get angry to death. Look at that cave. Alex looked into the ominous cave that was emitting a strong miasma. Are you sure you don't want others to accompany you or call for help? We don't know the level of the enemies inside. So you can die? Hurt asked with a solemn expression. Although Hurt looked young, he was actually old at heart and had already half decided to believe that the boy was a child who hadn't been reborn as him. Alex had a bright future ahead of him and could contribute a lot to this world. Alex noticed Hurt's line of thought. It would be best for them to ask for help, but they can't. Only people above the mythical realm would be told about the existence of these creatures, because if their presence was known throughout the world, everyone would panic in fear. And once the sacrificial altar was activated, many of them might be in danger. Alex only hoped that the people within the place would simply offer sacrifices through rituals. Otherwise, if they had set up a continent-level spell to trap people and drive away their souls, the damage might be too harsh. Alex had to blindly believe in the goddess. Since he had been assigned the task, that meant that Alex was capable enough to finish things, and with a companion by his side, he felt more confident in dealing with this matter. There are two guarding the place, Alex informed Hurt. Hurt had recently been through a number of tough battles, so Alex decided that he would draw out the enemies while Hurt would infiltrate the cave and search the place. Alex was confident in Hurt's strength and skill, and if something went wrong, he was more than capable of making it out alive. If worse came to worse, he could simply teleport away and they would both flee, and Alex would visit the church to ask the goddess for guidance. Use an acoustic barrier so that your screams don't alarm the others inside, Hurt advised. They both had an unspoken understanding. Alex slowly walked towards the entrance. From a distance, Alex could vaguely make out a hunched humanoid figure. It wasn't short, but bloated and heavy. Its body was a blackish green that gave off a foul smell. It was covered in scales that gleamed menacingly, and on its limbs were claws as long as a scythe. There was also another one. While the other was similar, it was more hideous than the first and looked like a disfigured and vengeful woman who tormented people in nightmares. Alex's body suddenly froze for a moment. This was too ugly for him to bear, and he even felt like vomiting. The creatures created by the god of darkness were so disgusting and hideous that they even took Alex by surprise. Alex had seen many gruesome scenes and was already used to ugliness, but this was something beyond the level of his wildest imagination. Even ugly ghosts from horror movies or science fiction aliens looked more handsome than these. That old bastard can't at least create a decent creature? What kind of shit is this? No, even shit looks better than these. The saying was right, an ugly brain gives rise to an ugly existence. I'm afraid that even my beauty might be affected by them. In the span of a second, Alex had cursed the entire Dark God's ancestor countless times. The creature noticed Alex from a distance. Lunging forward, it extended its gnarled arms towards him with the intention of slitting his throat with its claw. As the creature moved towards Alex away from the cave, Hurt, who was nearby, used special magic to hide himself and snuck into the cave. Horizontal ellipsis. Note, as you know, levels 7 to 9 are known as advanced spells, and after them, spells can be classified into legendary spells. The continental spell is above the legendary spell. Chapter 282, Alex vs. the Creatures of Darkness. The creature gave Alex a large toothy grin, but its teeth were black and the deformities added to its ugliness. Its appearance loomed over a person like a mountain, destroying all hopes of escape and giving her a slight feeling that she was going to be doomed. Alex didn't let his ego get the better of him and tried to approach them carefully. He raised his sword in one hand while extending his other arm after casting a spell and sending out a miniature bolt of lightning. The creature suddenly burst out of the darkness, dodging the bolt of lightning, and slammed into Alex. Its long tongue shot out like a whip and almost took Alex by surprise. Alex raised his feet and the tongue hit the ground, piercing a hole in it. The tip of the tongue was as sharp as a dagger that could be used as a weapon. The other tried to ambush Alex from a different side and tried to knock him down. The creature came out of nowhere filled with blood and madness as it struggled to pin Alex down. But Alex broke out of his control and sent it flying with a kick. The creature fell with a thud after crashing into the cave wall. Seeing its partner injured, the other creature became extremely enraged and lunged at Alex. It extended its claws, and the flesh on them flew everywhere as the creature tried to tear Alex apart. Clamp. Alex slammed his claws down hard, causing the creature to erupt in a painful wail. One of the claws on its hand was broken off, and a blackish-green viscous liquid was oozing out of it. Alex imbued his sword with light elemental magic and holy blessings. Both creatures backed away at the sight of the light and ran into the darkness-filled cave. Alex used his mana sensor to find that the entire cave was filled with mold, except for Hurt, who was running deeper into the cave. Alex ran after them and entered the dark cave. 2 short moments later, Alex growled as he felt something on his tail. He reacted first and evaded another whip-like substance and saw an elongated, blackish tentacle glowing in the air. Alex, who was already close to the cave entrance, saw so many human corpses riddled with holes and piled up on the side that he was stunned. Meanwhile, the tentacle stirred and shot towards Alex and nearly made a hole in his shoulder. Alex raised his sword in an attempt to cut the tentacle off, but it backed away into the darkness. Alex's eyes narrowed, and he twisted his body to avoid 3 tentacles and twisted his wrist to stab his sword. The sword cut through the tentacles that fell to the ground but dissipated soon after. So, it's made of dark elements, Alex muttered. Alex needs to use light elements to destroy the darkness surrounding him, but doing so may cause this creature to scream in agony, hurting its ears. That fool, what's taking him so long, or he'll be in trouble, Alex muttered. As he walked to the side and danced in the darkness to avoid the creature's attack, he activated the mana sensor map to find its location. As Alex rolled his eyes, he frowned as he saw there was no dot with Hurt's name on it. Alex's eyes twitched. In just a few moments, he was searching inside himself, and now he was gone just like that. Did he die just like that? That bastard only knew how to throw big. Alex gritted his teeth and offered a silent prayer on Hurt's behalf. Alex looked around to see the creatures hiding in the darkness and decided to take them out. Alex located them, and holding a lightsaber, he waited to throw them in that direction. Alex noticed a flash of shadow as they jumped out of the darkness looming over the cave. Alex was waiting for that exact moment. His body blurred, and before the flashing shadow could take hold, something pierced him. Hiss. His body was dragged towards the wall and was pinned to it with a lightsaber on the wall. He screamed in despair as his body began to burn. Alex walked towards it, and when he was inches away from the creature pinned to the wall, the other ghostly creature fell from above with a gust of wind passing by him as he fell. The creature's face became filled with lumps and pus that appeared before his sight and made him sick again. The bulging creature shot towards Alex, and the moment he took the first step, he crashed into an invisible wall fiercely. His body shook from the rebound for a moment, and he fell on his back. Alex took the opportunity, casting a spell forward, and a stream of fire erupted from his palm, expanding into a cone, and the flames surrounded the creature. Alex applied a sound barrier so that the sound of his despair would not travel any deeper. Tormented by the pain of the fire, the creature let out a shrill scream and raised its gnarled arms and body and tried to break through the magic barrier before Alex. Alex himself dispersed the barrier and stood in front of the creature with a wide grin. What awaited the creature was a barrage of slashes. The sword pierced the creature mercilessly, drawing arcs across its body. The weapon flashed cruelly as the left edge sliced through its body, slowly sapping its life with each slash. After slicing the creature, it fell helpless as its limbs and arms were severed, and what stood before him was a limbless creature writhing and hanging by a thread. Alex snapped his finger, and a bright light fell down and completely erased the creature's existence. Alex raised his chin to look at the creature that was moving and wriggling on the wall like a worm, and waved his hand. A beam of light shot towards him and ended his life. Alex stared at two notifications that appeared before his eyes. You have killed an epic rank darkness creature. You have gained 50 experience points. You have obtained an epic rank darkness creature. You have gained 50 experience points. You have leveled up. Chapter 283, Heading into the Pocket Dimension. Alex left the notification at the back of his mind and walked deeper into the cave. The cave was 3 kilometers long and only 2 epic rows guarded it. Alex searched every nook and cranny before reaching the end. His exhaustion was in vain, as he found no one hiding in the shadows and darkness of the cave waiting to attack him. At the end of the cave, a steel stone appeared out of nowhere, which had many charming soul cravings marked on it with blood. Alex had already managed to get hold of the item. The steel was the gateway to the other side. Even if someone found it, they wouldn't be able to get in easily. Alex took a deep breath. He finally understood the reason for Hurt's disappearance. Hurt could have gotten in and he might have sacrificed his life. Don't worry, Grandpa, I'll make a big grave for you. Alex spoke gratefully and stepped forward. Ouch! A light groan came from the other side and Alex's head collided with a person. Alex reacted quickly, pulling out her sword and almost going to slit the other party's neck, but stopped when she saw that he was injured. You came in alone? Alex asked with a surprised expression. Hurt rubbed a bump on his head as he stared at Alex. What is this man made of? Iron Man. His body is as hard as metal. Hurt lamented, trying to hold back the emerging horn. I decided to take a look first. If the passage connecting the other side is unstable, one can get lost in an endless void. So I did the safety check first. How considerate of me, Hurt boasted. Alex rolled her eyes with an expression. I also did a PhD in space magic. Okay, it's just that it consumes too much mana, that's why I refrain from using it, Alex thought to himself. Did you have any problems? Alex asked. I just scouted the area. I heard that there's a temple where they offered lives. We need to destroy that place and kill everyone. Hurt. Can't we just destroy this steel? Alex asked. Hurt shook his head and explained, the small world is an independent realm. The steel is just an escape route that connects. They're not fools to trust an access route like this. There had to be many. My case was a bit special, as the sacrificial altar was built in the city, but these vile creatures mainly do these kinds of heinous acts in pocket dimensions. Alex noticed Hert's worlds. He wasn't omnipotent and he knew everything. He only knew a little about this creature of darkness that moved like a cult. How did you know about all these things, and when did you find out about their existence? Anyone who set foot in the mythical realm had to sign a secret contract. It didn't matter what species they were, they had to join a special force that had to join together to fight these creatures. Hert replied to Alex. Are we going to be together or will we teleport separately? Asked Alex. They'll separate us. This was a safety mechanism on their part in case a group of people found out about their existence, and we can't manipulate the steel otherwise they might detect our existence. Hert sighed. Alex asked about the creatures of darkness, to which Hert gave a rundown on them. Alex had a rough understanding of them, but since he didn't have any practical experience, there was no need to brag. Okay, good luck, stay safe, Alex said before stepping forward. His hurt expression hardened and he shouted, you need more luck than me, don't go and die there pointlessly, brat. I'll try to find you as soon as possible. Alex, who entered, was teleported to a place full of darkness. With a loud thud, he landed on the ground. He heard the sound of water splashing and found himself swallowing water. That was what he initially thought. Everything was shallow and dark around him, and there was no sun. It was like the time before dawn and vision was rather poor due to the low light. Alex closed his eyes and poured mana into them. His eyes glowed a crimson color and everything around him instantly lit up. He saw sharp, oddly shaped rocks sticking out of the ground. Looking up, he found a reddish sky with scattered clouds. This is what this place looked like in the presence of light, he muttered as he looked down. His expression froze. What he initially thought was shallow water, turned out to be a shallow lake of blood. The place smelled awfully bad, and as his sense of smell had started to adjust to the rotten smell, he could smell blood. He didn't know if the liquid was blood or something else, as it was rather thin and fluid compared to blood. Except for its color and smell, nothing could match the characteristics of blood. In his surroundings was a grassy field with small patches of trees. Suddenly he heard a rustling sound behind him. The sound became increasingly clear. Something was approaching quickly, and it was a group of 3. Alex immediately looked at the source of the noise. It was 3 vile creatures of darkness coming out from behind a rock while holding something resembling a bucket on their shoulders. Alex assessed his strength and found an epic rank along with 2 master ranks. Their movements suddenly stopped when they found Alex in the pool. Human. Without warning, one of them grabbed the huge rock and with his strong arms he lifted it up and threw it at Alex. Alex was greeted with a rock and he jumped back, dodging the huge rock. Bam! He landed on the pool, splashing water. The waves of water hadn't calmed down yet on the surface when the sturdy figure ordered his minion to take him down. Maneuvering and twisting his body, he dodged the claws and sharp tongues by a few inches and jumped back, creating some distance between himself and them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284, Dangers Everywhere. The 2 creatures immediately charged forward with all their might to bridge the gap Alex had created. They raised their gnarled claws and shot their tongues at him at the same time. All parts of their bodies that could be used as weapons were thrown at Alex. Alex twirled his fingers and wisps of mana erupted from his fingers, swirling around them and condensing into small bullets of light. Alex spun his palms and the bullets began to spin at a remarkable speed, after which he threw his hand towards the 2 ugly heads. Zulu. Zulu. The bullets of light shot forward, whizzing through the air with such great speed that the 2 creatures that were in the air from their jump only showed flashes of bright golden light, after which a great feeling of pain assaulted them. The bullets of light quickly reached them and pierced through their bodies, making holes all over them. They fell to the ground with a thud, their eyes sunken and lifeless, and their bodies riddled with holes. Alex didn't let his guard down as he noticed the killing intent in the eyes of that sturdy epic-ranked boy who was beating his chest in anger. Stomping on the ground, he leapt forward and threw a fist at Alex. Alex immediately jumped and stepped aside. As a result, the punch went past him and crashed into the protruding rocks, kicking up dust and generating a wind so strong that Alex felt it from far behind. Aimed by the enraged guy, Alex experienced a rain of spears made of darkness. Had it been anyone else in his place, he would have immediately backed away after seeing the rain of attacks. "This bastard is surely copying my style," Alex complained. Alex charged forward fearlessly. Swish. Swoosh. Swoosh. Not a single spear made of darkness touched him as he zigzagged down the path and covered the distance by cutting through the barrage of attacks that covered the distance between them. Seeing Alex coming towards him, the sturdy creature slammed its thick, log-like arms into the ground. An instant later, Alex felt the ground beneath his feet vibrate and a crack in the ground extend towards him from the sturdy guy. He immediately jumped, but the sturdy figure followed Alex's movement and threw spears at him. As he fell from above, Alex twisted his body in the air and swung his sword downwards in a circular motion, deflecting the dark spears that came towards him and tried to impale him. Alex landed safely on the ground and jumped over the crack formed in the ground in an attempt to reach the enemy. The robust creature tightly gripped his hand, covering it completely in a blackish aura. Moving his shoulder after generating enough momentum, he struck Alex with all his might. The strong attack launched towards Alex destroyed everything in its path. Alex had already expected it, as he was in the air without any foothold. It was the perfect opportunity to knock him down. Alex tried to hold back his laughter after witnessing the creature's naivety, as he was able to get an idea of its motive. Alex scoffed and slid his feet. A strong air pressure shot out from his soul, and he flew a little, dodging the attack that was headed towards him. Evading it, Alex launched himself straight towards the creature. The scene of witnessing it dodging his attack and leaping into the air greatly shocked the poor, robust figure. Alex appeared before him and crushed the top of its bald head with his sword. Wow! It made a sound similar to a whip hitting bare skin. The crack of bones breaking resounded as a dozen cracks appeared over its skull. The creature growled in pain and gritted its teeth to suppress the discomfort and threw a fist, but Alex deflected it with his sword and kicked it in the chest, sending it flying back a few meters. With a groan, it slid to the ground and then stood up. The robust figure roared with bloodshot eyes and lunged at Alex. "You think your fist is pretty strong, huh?" Alex taunted. He figured he should show it what a real fist looked like. He raised his left hand and clenched his fist, causing small ripples to erupt in the air. Alex's eyes followed the enemy's arms and threw his own fist. Bang! As both fists collided, the robust figure screamed in pain as he felt his knuckle break along with the bones in his fist due to Alex's punch. Taking the opportunity, Alex stabbed his sword into its chest, making a hole, and striking with his left fist, he crushed its head, knocking it and causing it to explode into pieces. Blood along with a grayish matter of the brain gushed out and fell to the ground. The creature's head was shattered, and as Alex pulled out his sword, the animal fell to the ground with a thud. Alex looked at the 100-point notifications and a thoughtful look appeared on his face. If you were to face several of them, wouldn't it mean he could get a good amount of experience points? This place could become a hunting ground for him. With Hertz's explanation in his analysis, he concluded that the flow time was faster here and that 2 days here was equivalent to 1 day outside. He didn't know how many days he would spend here. His mana reserves were already running low as he had to circulate his mana, otherwise this atmosphere could greatly harm him. Unlike others who need to cover themselves in mana to protect themselves, Alex only needs to keep blessings running, which reduces mana expenditure. Still, he decided not to rush and first scan this place. After all, if there were 100,000 epic rankers here, he would be in serious trouble for running out of mana. Alex surveys the area and finds a quiet place to rest and activates the 5 elements breathing techniques, but to his dismay, his efficiency had dropped a little due to the place. Alex, who was focused on recovering a little, suddenly opened his eyes. He felt the unknown presence rushing towards him in the form of a shadow. Here comes trouble. Chapter 285, Alex versus a group of ugly bald guys. Perhaps it was a disruption caused by the above, or the presence of those corpses giving off the stench of blood, but Alex found a beast similar to a shadow creature surrounding him. It had a good concealment skill to cover itself in the darkness of the shadows. Alex was greatly alarmed by its presence. The beast was not able to properly conceal its presence, and Alex caught a glimpse of the swaying of the grass in the green areas before him, which it stepped on firmly. Alex stood up from his spot while tightening his grip on his sword. Waiting for a suitable opportunity, without making any noise, a beast quickly lunged towards Alex, threatening to tear his flesh after making a bloody hole in it. Metal clamp. The sound of metallic claws crashing against the surface of the sword could be heard, but the sword had to stop. A sharp, disturbing noise could be heard, accompanied by an eruption of faint sparks. No matter how much force the other party exerted, it was unable to advance even an inch. Alex stared at the figure that jumped out of the shadow. Its figure looked very similar to a leopard, except for the color of its body and eyes, which were black, along with its beastly and twisted claws, which were similar to those disgusting creatures. Alex was a little surprised to find the beast here, and more than that, this shadow leopard looked pretty good or normal compared to those hideous witches, whose mere glance can make you suffer a daily nightmare. The shadow leopard pulled back its paw and slashed with both claws, while exerting more strength with its hind legs. Alex carefully slid his sword to obstruct both claws that were aiming for its neck. Seeing that its claws were failing to advance towards its target, it opened its snout. The shadow leopard bared its sharp fangs as it tried to tear Alex's head off and swallow it in one bite. As it tried to fight its way out with all its strength, Alex delivered a powerful kick to its chest. Bam! It bled and was flung backwards with broken ribs. Alex immediately jumped after it. The shadow leopard twisted its body to regain balance and raised its paw to attack, but Alex's agility was greater and it was one step ahead. Bam! Alex dodged the paws in midair by twisting his body and landed on top of it, stomping it into the ground and pressing its soul onto it, pressing it down. The leopard fell to the ground with a loud thud. It struggled and writhed to free itself after being completely immobilized, but Alex's sword stabbed straight into its brain, ending its life. Blood gushed out of the hole in its head and the beast suddenly began to disappear. It was summoned, Alex muttered, greatly alarmed by the event. Alex felt something moving towards him. He knew his senses weren't playing tricks on him. Alex looked at his map but found nothing unusual, other than his senses, which had been heightened after countless beatings. He meant countless fights warning him of someone's presence. Alex turned his head and felt the wind pick up. He took the hint and immediately tilted his head back. Swish! Something sharp passed just millimeters from his neck. Alex's eyebrows furrowed as he searched for that sneaky bastard. Alex could feel a slight presence but he couldn't locate it. It was as if the creature was dead but at the same time not dead. Alex's hair stood on end as if he was at the end of the danger. Instead of using his eyes, Alex tried to feel and focused his attention on hearing. He immediately took a step back and raised his hand, grabbing something. I got it! Alex shouted and grabbed a whip-like substance, pulled it towards him and slammed it down. Fool! A dark figure emerged from the ground and shot towards Alex. Alex twisted his wrist and slashed it. The dark cut split into two halves and looked like a piece of black cloth dissipating into the air. What is this? Alex muttered. He was very surprised, and as he scanned his surroundings, he tried to search his mind for some information. Shadow summoning. Some information clicked in his mind. Some dark creatures could summon shadow puppets that they could use for various purposes. These things had no mana and were intangible existences that couldn't be considered alive like golems or artificial puppets. Since they have no mana, Alex's mana sensor didn't work on them. There might be more out there and the summoner might be nearby. I need to be careful, Alex muttered and increased his search radius as he kept an eye on these shadow summons. As Alex moved, he faced two more shadow summons that tried to harass him, but he easily took them down. Alex, who was standing on a vast plain filled with grass and bushes, found something unexpectedly. He immediately poured more mana into his eyes and saw an ugly, bald bastard. This bastard was controlling him through shadow summoning and used them to sneak attack him but failed. Alex pretended not to notice as he moved like a fool. The bald man, who was waiting for Alex to enter his strike zone, jumped like a frog and rushed towards Alex. He raised his long scythe-like hands with sharp blades at their tips that seemed to be coated in a deadly poison that emitted faint fumes. It was so poisonous that the vegetation around him burned so dark that it turned into nothing, creating an empty space around him. Alex slipped past the arc of his strike and dodged his attack. Moving behind him, Alex attacked from behind as fast as lightning. Slash! His sword shot out like a whip and decapitated his head. Woof woof woof! Alex heard the roar and found another figure that looked a bit like the one that had been killed. There were more, Alex muttered, raising his eyebrows. The sudden voice drew a lot of attention towards Alex and he began to analyze those waiting to attack him after many of his people arrived. There was a group surrounding him and running between the trees for cover and watching him. They seemed wary and stared at him while hiding in different places. Alex noticed their behavior. This group was easier to deal with than the others Alex had fought before, that was what he initially thought. They seemed to lack the look of having sharp tongues, tentacles, long claws, and disgusting sharp weapons sticking out of their body like it was no big deal. Instead, They relied on external weapons and poison along with a primal hunting method to corner, catch, and take down prey. Alex looked at the bushes and tree trunks they were behind. Alex noticed the red dots on his screen, but as he increased the radius of the screen, he found more than 50 bad figures, and there seemed to be more of them. It seemed like he was surrounded from the side. There were several epic ranks along with the master and disciple ranks. Alex always fought conservatively and against few. There was no need to kill them all in one blow and show off. In the current situation, he can't just get carried away by the situation and went out of control, causing rumblings and explosions. And he didn't even know if he could take down several epic ranks head-on. The situation was very different compared to the time when he rampaged through an ant-filled war. He needs to be cautious and sensible, but before that, he needs to assess his strengths and weaknesses. In a way, it was a panic situation as he seemed to be surrounded from all sides. No matter how strong Alex is currently, he can't take on hundreds of epic ranks at once without getting injured if the fight was head-on. That's not even the main problem, as all of them were cannon fodder. They weren't the ones responsible for everything that was happening outside. The people who participated in the sacrificial rituals could be much stronger. Alex turned around to observe the terrain. He was now on a plain with few trees. 200 meters away, Alex could see dense vegetation and a small desert. A perfect place to start a guerrilla war, and he just needed to provoke them and lure them there. Alex pointed his sword at them and spoke. "Since you're here, you bald old men, give me everything you've got." Chapter 286, Alex vs. Hundreds of ugly creatures. Alex's voice echoed far and wide. They didn't know Alex's language or understand his words, but seeing that haughty, arrogant look in his eyes, they knew the guy was provoking them. Coming out of their hiding places were many ugly bald men. Their slimy, dark green skin further contributed to their disgusting figure. They stared at Alex with blatant murderous intent. They all sharpened their swords to cut him into pieces, but except for the dozen or so standing near Alex, none of them moved because they thought Alex would be easily taken down by a group of people, so they didn't need to make a fuss about killing small prey. Those surrounding Alex saw that reinforcements had arrived and approached him. 14 dark, bald figures jumping out from all sides were reflected in Alex's sight. Alex wrapped his sword in the aura that made the blade slightly longer. His sword was covered in a crimson glow that gave him a menacing look. As the enemies entered his attack radius, Alex held the elongated sword and spun his body in a circle with the sword in his hand extended outwards, the sharp surface of the sword drawing a horizontal line on the ugly bald man's body. Everyone who was far away from the spot witnessed a small crimson flash illuminated in the darkness that moved horizontally in circles followed by backward slashes that swept air blades from afar. Immediately after that, the members of his group could be seen splitting into two. Starting from 1, the number of corpses increased to 3, then 8 and kept increasing. Alex stood at the center of the carnage as he spun his sword like wind blades cutting everyone who entered his radius into pieces. The group of bald men were hunters who would give their best to kill their enemies. Since they had already reached this point, they would see it through to the bitter end. Alex's expression hardened as he watched them approach him even though he had just slaughtered many. There was no fear on their faces, rather they thought they could overcome him with their numbers. Hoo-hoo. Ow-oo. A-Y-A-Y-A-Y-A-Y-A-Y-A-Y-A-Y. Emitting shrill, blood-curdling screams, hundreds of them appeared out of nowhere and gathered on the spot to attack him, but Alex seemed absolutely unfazed as he dodged their attacks as casually as possible. Alex saw them lunge, claw, brandish their weapons, throw gouts of poison, and some were desperate enough to bite him and eat him raw, but on the other hand, they saw the enemy dancing with magnificent footwork, slipping away from his attack like a fish escaping a fisherman's net. His graceful movements accompanied by the rhythm of his sword strikes did not match the bloody atmosphere. Along the way, he swung his sword, slicing and dismembering limbs and heads that stood in his way. He instantly swung his sword from left to right, from horizontal line to vertical line, and as he moved all around, brilliant flashes of line erupted from his sword. Abyssal slash, wind cutter, burning fury, a crescent-shaped arc imbued with various kinds of elements fell upon them one after another like a torrential rain, cutting them into pieces like sacrificial chickens and pigs. Penetrating thrust, Alex swung his sword again, but this time a bright and dazzling light shot out from the tip of the sword, moving in a straight line. Like a flash of torchlight, it painted the canvas of the surroundings, illuminating the darkness. The beam of the sword drew a perfectly horizontal line on the fabric of reality, moving forward with unstoppable momentum, opening a hole in everything that stood in its way. The roar of the sword cut through the group of bald men like a hot knife through butter. Everything it pierced was torn apart. In a straight horizontal line, anyone standing had a large hole in their chest. Alex had already finished off more than half of them, and there was still a third of the remaining ones missing, and Alex attacked them with a wind cutter, but the monsters were ready this time. They didn't rush in like fools and opened their ugly mouths wide. Their necks swelled like frogs, making croaking noises followed by strong waves of mana as they sucked in air with force. His neck swelled ridiculously, and Alex found something forming inside the back of his throat and his mouth, resembling a ball of mana. The ball was dark gray in color, and Alex noticed that it resembled the poison from their swords. Opening their mouths, they fired the thing. It looked like they spat a huge ball of their poisonous saliva towards Alex, and there were around 100 of them that could be seen flying through the air. Alex saw dozens of shots first and waved his hand to form a sturdy barrier. Fool! 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 A sound resembling drums was heard as the ball crashed into the barrier, but to Alex's surprise, fumes began to rise from the barrier which began to disperse. These balls corroded even the barrier, Alex shouts in shock. These balls seemed to be highly lethal. Alex was alarmed by the fact that his barrier might not last against them if hundreds of balls fell on it and would break through the barrier and burn him. Alex swung his sword fiercely, slicing crescent-shaped wind blades one after another. Aum. The wind blades met the acidic and poisonous saliva and immediately exploded. The Spitfires were able to knock the wind blades down with them, much to Alex's surprise. Alex's expression fell a little. Physical attacks could be neutralized by them. Alex even threw a fireball which proved useless, and in case of lightning, it caused a huge explosion, but the other side was not harmed. The battle seemed like a declaration. It was time to use the second option. Alex sighed, thinking of the glorious day when he used his greatsword to launch an attack similar to a missile explosion. Chapter 287, The Beginning of the Hunt. Gone were the days when, with a large sword in his hand, a boy with golden hair had a carefree look as he swung that huge sword amidst the chaos of destruction. Alex felt as if he had long since been separated from his first love, who was beginning to chase after him. If anyone knew him well and heard him, they would be cursed to death for their actions. Alex shook his head, and instead of running forward like a brave man, he turned his back on them and began to run away, but he didn't forget to taunt them as he ran away. "Motherfucker, if you dare call yourselves men, come and get me," Alex shouted and ran off while pulling his tail. The ferocious bald men who were attacking Alex suddenly lay on the ground with an expression of shock and disbelief as they were stunned to see the man who was slaughtering them a while ago run away from them as if they were some kind of disease. They gaped as they saw the boy's back running like lightning into the forest behind. "Oh." A huge guy opened his mouth and let out a beastly roar and stomped his foot hard on the ground. The mighty beastly roar was enough to bring everyone back to reality. A moment later, hundreds of dark and vile bodies were seen chasing a man like a predator through the forest. After a few minutes of chasing, the fastest ones managed to spot Alex while the rest of the pack was chasing them. They were still hot on Alex's heels, as if he was a criminal who had committed a heinous crime. Alex noticed that they were stuck on their backs and his lips curled upwards. With a small run, he has already split them into groups and can start hunting them separately. Alex analyzed that they need some time to make poisonous acid balls, and if Alex faces them head-on, there may be chances of their weapons getting damaged, as it might even erode mana and aura. Alex slowed down, and the moment they caught up to him, Alex stopped, turned around, and like a fierce and fast cheetah, pounced on them and struck them with his sword as fast as possible. These people didn't think that the scared human who was running away would suddenly attack them. They weren't prepared for this and had already let their guard down. But being hunters since long ago, they were already adapted to the event, that is to expect the unexpected. They were hunters who possessed the ability to respond to danger instinctively. Boom! They shot their swords at him, aiming for Alex's figure as they tried to buy some time to prepare the paper ball. Not allowing them to back off, Alex dodged them all and approached them. The group was not given a chance to fight back. 3 were decapitated at the same time while the remaining 2 responded in time. Jumping back to narrowly escape the arc of that blow, they leapt at it but failed to notice the subtle change in the arc of the sword drawn by Alex, who changed the movement and was now thrusting his sword in their direction. The sword stabbed and pierced through the chest of one and branched out from his back and stabbed into another's head. Alex pulled out his sword and struck at the others. After killing all 6, he noticed more attacks from behind. Alex's senses quickly activated and his body reacted on its own to dodge the sharp blades coming at him from behind. He immediately flailed his body and slashed his sword sharply without looking at them properly. 2 other bald men had their heads blown off and were thrown over the corpses of their friends. Alex turned around, stomped heavily, and shot forward like a cannon. Swinging his sword around, he stabbed it downwards towards the other group. Swish! An invisible, sharp mass of pressure surged out, cutting straight through and splitting the heads of the incoming group open. Alex's hearing perked up as he heard the roars and screams of many. Many of them were getting closer, and Alex had to think of something. There were at least 40 to 60 epic rankers in the group, which could put him in danger if he was surrounded on all sides. He looked around. The area was filled with tall trees and bushes to hide in. Looking around, his gaze lands on the corpse beneath his feet. He stared at the greenish-black, viscous liquid. He didn't know if those creatures' sense of smell was strong or not, but it was better for him not to take any chances. He leaned forward, pressing his hands on the pool of blood to check if it was poisonous or not, and sure enough it was poisonous, as Alex felt a tingle when he touched it. It wasn't life-threatening and the effect was rather mild as it caused a rash and itching. Alex was able to heal and detoxify him. Wasting no time, he applied blood all over his body as he tried to hold back his urge to vomit. His smell was properly masked and was replaced by rotten eggs, spoiled food and garbage that had been left there for months. It was just too disgusting. As a more preventative measure, Alex rolled around on the ground with dirt and leaves sticking to his skin. Standing up, he suddenly climbed a towering tree whose branches were thick enough to support many humans. Alex climbed up a tree and looked around, sliding his feet towards the others and moving towards a safer spot away from the crime scene filled with blood and corpses. Reaching under the thick branch, he pulled out the smaller twigs for cover. Several breaths later, about 110 of them arrived downstairs and searched around. They were angry and couldn't get their prey out. They sniffed the air as they searched for tracks, and found someone rolling on the ground a few small steps forward. Roaring, they scattered to search for them. Chapter 288, The Beginning of the Hunt 2. Looking at the group below him who were trying their best to find him, Alex thought about Hurt's whereabouts. To survive in this place, knowledge, skills, and strength are needed. Unlike him, whose knowledge about these creatures was rather superficial, Hurt seems to know more about them, and coupled with the kingdom's legendary strength, it would be more than enough to deal with the troubles unless he encounters some mishap. Hurt may have been dealing with these pests for a long time and knew about their weakness. Alex looked around at the large number of enemies walking around him and gripped his sword to rush into action. It was time to reverse the situation. The group below had completely let their guard down, thinking that Alex might have escaped. They simply didn't notice that the hunter had set his eyes on them, and Alex with silent steps caught up to them. The atmosphere was already dark, and even Alex's partial concealment skill worked wonders here. Alex jumped down from the tree and landed silently on the ground. Alex looked at the group, who were walking forward calmly, turning their backs to him, which turned out to be quite fatal for them. Alex first marked the area with a sound barrier and then took the opportunity to stab the enemy who was furthest behind the group with his sword and killed him quickly and without anyone knowing about his death. Alex also killed him silently. Alex quickly grabbed the corpse and flew to the tree and placed the corpse on the branch carefully to hide from the others. He decided to assault the rest of them by playing from the shadows. He stared at the ugly bald men who had their backs to him. They looked left and right for him, but they didn't look back. Alex silently appeared out of nowhere, picked up the last man in the line and disappeared into the darkness. Alex uses this tactic to kill several dozen more, one by one. To him, it was like picking fruits from a pile and stashing them somewhere. The hidden search game went on for a long time. Out of all those who wanted to take his life, Alex eliminated 100. It took him almost 2 hours to reduce their number, which was quite a tiring job since he was fighting against people of the same rank. Even small ants when united could harm an elephant, let alone people of the same rank. Alex also gained some benefits from killing them, which were none other than experience points and leveling up. His experience bar, which had been depleted for 2 months, was refilling at a faster rate, and he had already leveled up to level 14 at the epic rank. On top of that, using partial concealment skills and assassin techniques learned from Ridaya, he was becoming more and more proficient at it. His partial concealment increased from F2. Even if he could master the concealment skill, he would still fall short against Ridaya, who could use the darkness element. Unless Alex could use the darkness element, his concealment skill would be stuck at partial, which was nothing more than a cheap copy of Rai's skill. Still, it was more than enough to deal with him. Alex wiped the sweat from his forehead and walked nimbly like a cat at a slow speed without producing any noise. Alex's footsteps were fairly silent, and even after this he was still as agile as ever as he picked them off one by one. The prey had already realized something was wrong, but since everyone was scattered, not many noticed his situation. Alex had carefully picked out the strongest ones first and disposed of their corpses. He also used some to lean against a tree for others to see, and when they stopped, Alex would climb down and send them to the afterlife. Although Alex tried to do it as cleanly as possible, it was inevitable that he would make some mistakes. One of them was searching around the tree, and suddenly a drop of liquid fell on his bald head. He touched the liquid and smelled it. His eyes bulged out of their sockets as he caught the familiar scent of blood and looked up at the branches of the tree. His scales went numb as he looked up. Several dead figures were hanging from the branches above, and he wasn't alone in one tree, but many trees in the surrounding area were littered with corpses. He tried to scream but felt his soul leaving his body after seeing such a horrific scene. Their unity coupled with their hunting tactics was their strength, but who knew that the human would slowly pull them apart and take them down one by one until there were dozens of them left. Woo! As they got closer, they didn't know if it was due to a natural phenomenon or someone's prank. A strong gust of wind started blowing from above. The force of the wind was so strong that even the tall and sturdy trees started swaying left and right. And at that very moment, corpses could be seen scattered all over the forest one by one. Bang! 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 The scene looked as if ripe fruits were falling from the trees one by one due to the strong gust of wind, but instead of fruits, there were corpses everywhere. Only after the creatures became frightened by witnessing such a scene did Alex decide to step out of the darkness and into their sight with a smile on his face. Let's clean up the leftovers. Alex's smile widened, and with large strides he moved forward. Chapter 289, The Beginning of the Hunt 3. The corpses piled up one after another, forming a small mountain. When Alex killed the last enemy, his danger senses activated again and his sixth sense tingled on his back. Not again, Alex sighed. He had found enemies again. Every time he finished one group, another one appeared out of nowhere, as if they were watching him and waiting for the chance to jump on him. He didn't think twice before leaning to the side and using his extensive footwork to get as far away as possible. Swish! An instant later, his eyes caught the sight of a blinding flash of light that missed him by a few inches and quickly passed by him as it crashed into the tree. Struck by the arrow, the huge, towering tree exploded into pieces and turned into dust. It was quite a ridiculous sight. Alex couldn't even imagine the image of the arrow hitting him and shattering his body. Wrinkles appeared on his face and he looked in the direction the arrow came from. His pupil contracted and the hairs on his skin stood up. Shit! Alex cursed as he saw many blinding flashes of light heading straight for him. Alex instantly covered his body in the aura and quickly jumped up. Using the tree as a foothold, he jumped from one to the other, leaving behind afterimages. Trees were knocked down one after another behind him, Alex not even sparing them a glance as he fled. Alex, who jumped up a tree, was instantly startled as he saw an arrow stuck in its trunk. Boom! The trees exploded and Alex's figure was sent flying backwards, crashing into the tree, and a dent appeared on the tree, causing the huge tree to fall to the side. Meanwhile, Alex's body bounced back after crashing and rolling on the ground. Ho-ha! With a tight grip, Alex mustered up his strength to speak. Who are you? Why do you want to kill me? Alex's pained expressions elicited laughter from the other side. You dare to ask me who I am and why I wanted to kill you after you slaughtered the tribe under my command? What an insolent brat! A loud sound was heard, followed by applause. Alex's eyes immediately turned towards the source of the sound, from where a man was walking towards him with casual steps. His face was dark and tanned, with black lines swirling around his face like tattoos. He was wearing black clothing and leather armor. The first thing Alex noticed was that the man didn't look as ugly as the otter shadow creatures, which even made him doubt whether this was a creature of darkness or not. The man who introduced himself as Kim opened his mouth to praise Alex. Human cub, you have impressive reflexes. You're only at the epic rank, but you were still able to wipe out an entire tribe. It's impressive, but unfortunately I have to kill you. Before you kill me, can't you at least tell me your identity? I mean, what's with these disfigured guys? Are they lab rats? Kim rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. You can say that. They're all cannon fodder that we've raised. Kim noticed Alex's curious expression and his expression hardened. I wish I could take you with me, but I have to kill you for causing all the damage. On second thought, I change my mind. You'll make a good sacrificial pawn. A hysterical and maniacal laugh erupted from Kim, and without warning, he raised his bow, aiming straight at Alex, who was lying on the ground with a pained expression. Swish. 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 Kim fired 3 arrows, but contrary to his expectations of seeing the bloodied figure, the arrows impacted on the ground and Alex's figure disappeared as if the previous display was all an act to trick him. He was startled by the sudden events and looked around to find Alex. Alex instantly teleported behind Kim and tightened his grip on the sword, slashing at him, aiming for his neck and trying to kill him instantly. Just inches away from Kim's neck, 2 arrows appeared out of nowhere and struck Alex's sword. Lightning shot through the sword, reaching the arm and finally hitting Alex. Alex groaned and a spasm quickly transmitted through his right arm, immediately paralyzing his upper right body. Alex immediately released his sword and used his other hand to manipulate the air and fly a few meters backwards to gain some distance. The moment Alex stepped back, 3 figures descended from above and stood near Kim. Alex noticed 2 females and 1 male in the group, and Kim seemed to be their leader. Alex waved his hand to get rid of the spasm after applying a small healing spell. After getting rid of the paralysis, Alex's expression darkened and his swallow-like eyes became as dark as black holes. He looked at his figure after activating the eyes of truth and was shocked to see the information on the screen. Alex spoke in a rough and hoarse voice filled with anger and hatred. You let your soul become corrupted and became a servant of darkness. How can you betray your kind and ally yourself with the other world? Alex asked disdainfully. Ha ha ha, the people behind Kim burst into laughter. Betray our kind, you sure know how to joke. It was our kind that betrayed us first. What do you know? A person like you, drunk with power, can never know how miserable the lives of those of lower rank are, Dest muttered. We were looked down upon, treated like slaves, and abused as if we had no value in this world. If humans treated their fellow humans like humans, the world wouldn't be as miserable as it is. Rose stepped forward while pointing at Alex. Ordinary people have nothing but misery and sadness that people like you cannot comprehend. Anyone who does not have strength will lead a horrible life. So what's wrong with giving up on humanity and embracing darkness? Alex raised his eyebrows and spat. Do you think your reasoning would turn black into white and white into black? What you're doing, isn't it the same thing? Pushing aside innocents and offering them up as sacrifices. Kim, we should kill him. He knows about us and the operation going on here. We can't let him escape, Rose said. The last man standing behind, whose name was Moab, stared lifelessly at Alex and said, No, we can't just let him. We need to subdue and capture him first. We need to get the details out of him and find out how this guy got here and who's behind him. Later, we can offer him up as a sacrifice. These foolish people are like pests. There's no end to them. Fortunately, we'll be richly rewarded for finding them. Where did they sacrifice people? Alex asked. There's no need to rush, boy. We'll lead you to them, Kim muttered and waved his hand, after which 3 figures quickly walked past him. Looking at the incoming figures, Alex had one thought in his mind. Are they fools? He has killed many epic rankers and their corpses are still fresh even after this. They are still moving forward. Chapter 290, Humans Who Became Servants of Darkness. Dish, who was at the forefront of the charge, took out a huge scythe. Its edges were sharp and threatened to tear the opponent apart. Rose and Moab turned around and the trio formed a triangular formation, trapping Alex on 3 sides. Alex simply walked towards them calmly. Instead of focusing on them, he turned his attention to Kim. He was afraid that the Kim would attack him by surprise when the opportunity arose. He wouldn't be lucky enough to dodge the blow due to his constant perception. The group that saw his calm walk was stunned. They didn't know the reason for his arrogance in front of 3 epic rankers and weren't the least bit interested in finding out. They just wanted to tear his limbs apart and bring him back quickly so they could relax. Alex waved his hand and the sword that had fallen immediately flew into his hands. Rose and Moab rushed towards Alex. The gap between them was covered in an instant, in the blink of an eye. A moment later, the scene that appeared in Alex's eyes were 2 people aiming for his vitals. As their weapons advanced wanting to cut him, Alex swung his sword towards them, giving them a horizontal slash. Alex's sword met the sharp edges of the other 2 swords, and for a short time, the sounds of metal clashing against each other could be heard. Clear sound. Clear sound. arose in Moab's eyes, filled with shock and disbelief as Alex stopped both attacks with ridiculous force and momentum that forced them to lose control of their weapon. Their arms went numb and the weapons flew out of their hands and fell some distance away. They were helpless without weapons. With weapons, they were no match for Alex, so how could they possibly face him without a weapon? Alice, it was already too late to find one. While Alex's strength was 170, the strength of the other epic rankers ranged between 90 and 110, and in a way, Alex's strength was twice that of them due to the extra stat points and massive training. Unless Alex was in the mood to play around, no epic ranker had a chance to even raise their weapons at him a second time. And currently, to his bad luck, Alex's mood was really bad after finding out the true identity of these people. Alex didn't let the opportunity pass and went for the kill instantly. Alex, without any hint of mercy, slashed his swords at Rose and Dest, who jumped back in fright. Though they reacted fast enough to create distance between them before Alex swung his sword, the arc of his sword reached them anyway, drawing a faint line on their neck. Blood gushes from their necks. They clutched their necks trying to contain the wound and stop their neck from falling. Their perseverance surprised Alex a bit, as normal human beings may have already died. Alex stared at the duo, who weakly backed away as if they were on their last breath. Alex's intent to kill them reflected in his eyes and he charged towards them. But Dest stood between them and brandished his scythe. Spike. Alex felt faint drops of liquid fall on his skin and begin to burn him. Resisting is useless. The poison will soon take away your senses and paralyze you. His words fell on deaf ears and Alex's sword struck him hard. Clammo. 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 Dest tried to parry Alex's attack, but Alex's sword swing grew faster and soon, with one clean strike, Alex cut the scythe's handle off, causing a gash on Dest's chest, much to his horror. Dest was dumbfounded for a moment as he saw that the poison had no effect on Alex. Before he could finish the job, Kim pointed a bow at Alex. The bow had no arrow and instead of an arrow, countless motes of light appeared around it that came together to form an arrow. Dark energy erupted from her fingertips, infusing the arrow and causing it to turn into a dark-hued arrow and increasing in strength. Looking at Alex with a playful expression, the arrow immediately charged towards Alex. Kim thought that that small attack would be enough to buy time for the others to escape and then he would join in and finish the job, but contrary to his expectations, the scene did not turn out as he imagined. To his dismay, Alex did not even look at his attack and simply swung his sword. A ray of light appeared in the path of the arrow, which struck him and disappeared after crumbling into pieces. Although Alex was already a few steps away from the target, his hands moved like a whip invisible to the naked eye. The sword slid along the path, falling on their necks like a knife cutting vegetables. 3 heads detached from their bodies and flew through the air, leaving behind a cleanly severed neck, from which blood gushed out like a fountain. Kim's expression hardened. He had thought that the boy would have become exhausted after fighting for so long and would become easy prey for them, but at the last moment, he had already killed 3 epic rankers. Panic was evident in his eyes and he lost the desire to confront it. At that moment, a terrifying gaze fell upon him that made his entire body shudder in fear. He was at the transcendent rank, but he felt that his strength wasn't enough to kill this guy. "Can't we talk first?" Without muttering a word, Alex rushed towards him with a bloody sword in his hands, giving him a look of a murdered psychopath. Kim raised his bow, shooting a few arrows as he backed away trying to escape. Alex cut the arrow with his light elemental slash and launched many light swords towards Kim, who tried to dodge them. Alex raised his other arms, stretched out his hands and pointed them towards Kim. More than dozens of mana particles erupted from his finger and intertwined in the air. Behind him materialized many light arrows, swords and spears that were meant for Kim. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291, Humans Who Became Servants of Darkness 2. Alex curled his finger and moved it towards Kim. All the weapons in his arsenal were launched forward. Many of them missed their target while others were struck down by the Kim's arrows. Instead of running away like a headless chicken, if Kim had used his brain to fight and defend Alex using the bows, he might have stood a chance, but being overcome by fear, his brain had already begun to malfunction. He was just an ant who rose through the ranks due to the power of darkness, and people like him operate on the principle of weak against strong and strong against weak. There hadn't been any situation where they had to fight to risk their lives. Ultimately, he failed to dodge the barrage of weapons and some of them pierced his body. These arrows hit him in the back, a spear pierced his thigh while 2 swords pierced both of his arms. Arg, Kim groaned as he was hit by them. Unable to run with his body riddled with weapons, he stumbled and fell to the ground bleeding profusely from his wounds. What the hell is this? It hurts so much? I feel like I'm being roasted, Kim screamed and tried to pull the weapon out with his hand, but it burned when he touched it. Swish. Swish. 2 spears appeared out of nowhere and pierced his palms, leaving him pinned to the ground. A gasp escaped his lips. The pain terrified him greatly, it was too much for him to bear. Standing at death's door, tears welled up in his eyes. At this moment, he felt a soft hand gently caressing his head. Kim unconsciously raised his chin and his eyes met the sunken, lifeless eyes of the person who had an apathetic expression on his face. There was no trace of anger, hatred, happiness or any emotion one could find when being killed by a man. It was as if he was worse than an insect and his life or death didn't matter to this guy. I don't want to die. Don't kill me, maybe I can be of some help, Kim sobbed. His dignified expression had already been crushed and shattered. Alex simply waved his hand and spoke with an indifferent expression. How many people could have begged you before you? How many people could have begged you to forgive them and cry tears of blood? Have you ever listened to their pleas? The greatest help you can give me is to die and repent in hell. Before that, let's see how many dirty secrets are in your brain. Alex grabbed Kim's head and began the soul searching. Kim felt his mind being torn apart and exploding into pieces. His scream fell on deaf ears as Alex searched for useful information. Alex felt a veil of darkness covering the memories, but Alex didn't stop and pierced through the veil, and when he finally grasped the memories, Alex's soul was suddenly struck. A sudden headache assaulted him as if it wanted to split his head into 2 pieces. Alex let go of his hands and took a few steps back. He leaned against a tree as he breathed heavily, trying to steady himself. Alex even found it difficult to open his eyelids. A cold sweat formed on his forehead and he sat leaning against a tree. Soul attack, Alex muttered with ragged breathing. As he delved deeper into the memories, the darkness within the soul suddenly formed a needle that attacked Alex's soul after taking him by surprise. It wasn't normal, and anyone below the mythic realm would be killed directly, and those above it would be brutally injured. Even a 5% damage to the soul can take a few weeks to heal. If Alex's soul wasn't strong enough, he could spend months or years in the coffin or bed. That god of darkness isn't a simple being, Alex muttered, clutching his forehead. He was suffering from a severe headache and no healing spells worked to fix it. Alex didn't even think that the god of darkness would have such preventative measures. As the darkness that corrupted the soul was an essence that came from him, he had a failsafe that would activate if a soul was invaded by another. Alex struggled to stand up again and immediately finished off Kim. The amount of information Alex obtained may be small, but it was quite crucial. The first thing was that all the people or creatures living in the pocket dimension were not real creatures of darkness, but were breeding experiments. When they came from another world, their numbers were quite smaller, so they first tried to increase their forces. The first method was to give false hope to people and persuade them to join them, after which they would corrupt their souls by making them swear eternal loyalty. Later, they found out that this wasn't feasible in the long run, as they couldn't accumulate many people and most of them had no hope or good potential, thus being quite useless. So they went for the second method and experimented on humans and creatures of their race to produce these hideous pieces of shit. Real creatures might be ugly, but not to this extent, and Alex was shocked to learn that they could use all elemental properties except light elements. Alex's back was already starting to get cold after knowing this, and he had a feeling that the true purpose of these breeding grounds was to produce a being that could have resistance to the light elements. This is too much, Alex massaged his forehead. Killing so many creatures was already considered an achievement, only to find out afterwards that they were all fakes. He didn't know if there were any dark creatures in this dimension since he was attacked before he could reach the end, but he already had a rough understanding of this place. There was a temple hidden in the middle. Kim and his group's task was to keep an eye on these creatures and take care of the small runic barriers erected that maintain the dimension, and then look for humans, beasts, or anything they could sacrifice and report back if anything strange might happen. Chapter 292, Snipers in the Dark. Alex first thought of removing the erect rune barriers, but changed his mind as it might cause the entire dimension to collapse. Offering people was also a way for God to gather divinity, but it was considered quite heinous. Although the devil disliked it, he was also offered several offerings every year, but he usually turned a blind eye, and even if he didn't want them, he had to accept them with tears in his eyes. He didn't have any oracles or saintesses to convey his message to, so under the strange mouths of the people, his rumors were exaggerated day by day. From the god of death to the current god of evil, his journey had been quite long and arduous. That poor guy was completely helpless. The rumor of his ill fame had spread far and wide, and he was being portrayed as the god of evil. In terms of evil fame, even the god of darkness is a child in front of him. Now when it comes to sacrifices, after gathering an appropriate amount of sacrifices, a ritual is held where the god of darkness bestows his blessings. A portion of the blessings can be used to strengthen oneself, while the other is used to make people who choose to pledge themselves to the god of darkness be blessed. Although these human servants were cheap copies of true creatures of darkness, they were capable of hiding and blending into the shadows and could not be ignored. There were chances of going unnoticed and receiving sneak attacks out of nowhere as you wandered around the place without thinking. It was not a good idea to stay unprepared enough. He knew that his sense of smell was very keen and could inform him of danger and help him avoid the troublesome situation, but he could not always rely on luck to avoid trouble and come out safe and sound. So he decided to change tactics. He partially covered himself and skillfully climbed the tree and began jumping from tree to tree, covering several dozen distances with each jump. His eyes wandered around searching for the presence of a human who had become a servant of darkness. After moving around for a while, his eyes landed on the group patrolling the area. He was high up in the tree and hiding. He watched them. They were carrying the corpses of humans who had died and were doing something with them. Unknowingly, Alex felt a creepy feeling creeping up his back. A man covered in a mask opened his mouth wide. The dark, slimy tongue extended from his mouth and seemed to pierce the corpse. An instant later, Alex noticed that the corpse was turning pale and thin as if it was being sucked dry. The man made a satisfying noise and soon picked up a container and spat something into it. Alex was very disgusted by his action. Alex couldn't hold it in any longer and started walking towards them. Humans whose souls had been corrupted along with their mana, mutate in various ways. They feed on human corpses and enjoy drinking their blood. These were parasites in the truest sense of the word, practicing cannibalism. So as long as they were close to them, they could make out their scent and track humans if any moved within their radius. Seeing that the people were busy, Alex made his move, but their eyes narrowed as they reacted quickly and sprang into action. A black figure was alerted by Alex's presence and shot towards him. Its hands had claws that extended straight towards Alex's throat, followed by others. Spike. The sound was produced by Alex's sword, deflecting the attack, after which another sound reached the people behind them. Alex's sword pierced through the heads of two people and split their faces in two. Alex jumped and landed on the ground a few meters away from the remaining ones and spun his hands, which had already sprouted mana, to form miniature light bullets that could make holes in the flesh of many. As one body fell to the ground, there were three others whose eyes widened in disbelief. They rolled their tongues to scream and let go of the corpse they were feeding on, but before they could do so, death had already reached their necks. Alex grabbed one of the necks to apply great force and spun it around while the other heads were torn open by the light bullets, leaving behind a gruesome sight. Two bodies fell, but Alex was a little surprised to see that the one he was holding after twisting its neck was still alive and was writhing, trying to breathe air with its body trembling like a cockroach in its last breath. These people were like cockroaches. Alex didn't delay any longer and cut off its head. Alex stared at the notification that appeared before his eyes and immediately activated the mana sensor. Alex located another group, climbed the tree near them, and took out the bow, which he had stored in Kim. The range of the bow depended on the user's strength, and the arrows used were the user's mana molded into an arrow. Alex found himself in a comfortable slashing position from where he could start firing arrows. A hint of excitement flashed in his eyes as he recalled the game where he shot at enemies. He wished he had a weapon that he could try to fire a headshot and also fire bullets at will. Alex pulled the string to its maximum limit. The mana from his fingers on the shaft and the bowstring extended towards each other and converged to form an arrow that emitted a bright golden light. Pulling the string and aiming at the enemy, Alex released a bright golden arrow. The arrow flashed and pierced the darkness with a soft whistling sound and leaving behind a trail of golden light. Chapter 293, Hand Stained with Blood and Darkness. With a pile of corpses beside him, a man bites into the flesh of a dead body and begins to chew it. A subtle pleasure invaded him, as if he was enjoying one of the most delicious meals of his life. Next to him, Another sucked the blood and made it gurgle before drinking. The scene was absolutely horrifying and tragic, but still, the duo didn't care. What a delicious meal. The man muttered and looked at his companion. His companion raised his head to respond, but suddenly an arrow appeared and pierced his head, and his head exploded into pieces. Hey! The man was taken aback by the sight and stood up. Swish! A red liquid dripped from his head, dyeing his vision red, and fell to the ground with a thud. Without sparing them a glance, Alex cautiously walked away. Another group was unlucky enough to cross his path. Alex didn't fight them but showered them with his arrow. Each arrow took one life without missing even once. Alex felt like he could even win the MVP award in the tournament thanks to his kills, and each of his kills was a headshot. He couldn't help but pat himself on the back to congratulate himself for displaying such skills. About 15 hours had passed and Alex had been killing people one by one. Alex had forgotten even the passage of time in that place. He decided to take a break, but he was always attacked at that time. He was even hit by an arrow when he decided to meditate to recover, so he gave up on camping. In the endless night, he fought alone and killed everyone who came his way. The pocket dimension seems as big as a small kingdom filled with all kinds of creatures. His clothes were soaked in blood and so were his hands. He had been killing non-stop to the point that many new calluses were already forming on his palms due to him tightly gripping the hilt of his sword. There were a few scratches on his body, and there were some signs of wounds and cuts due to the sneak attack. His senses had become quite dull due to all the fighting and lack of rest. Everyone he had killed so far was quite a bit stronger, and each of their presence could threaten the stability of the low-level kingdom. Alex didn't know about the strength of the enemy in the end. The person who will be the final boss might prove difficult for him if he couldn't overcome his exhaustion. The flow of dark energy was trying to erode his senses and greatly damage him, but gritting his teeth, he walked forward as if he was numb to all of this. Alex sighed and looked at his hands. His hands were stained with blood mixed with darkness. As he killed along the way, countless thoughts flashed before his eyes as he looked at the horrifying scenes of humans who were dead, and these lifeless corpses were desecrated and devoured by these hideous monsters in human clothing. There were even small children among the dead, and he also found a 12-year-old boy who had gone over to the other side. It was a scene that Alex did not want to experience again. The range of age groups was quite wide. A dying man desperately clings to any ray of hope he sees. These people were tempted by the darkness, which rekindled their hope by promising to give them everything they wished for once they joined hands, and it was really hard for a pitiful person to ignore it. No matter how strong you are, in life it is inevitable that you will experience situations where you will break down and want to fly away. When Ava was dying before his eyes, if someone had said that they could save her if Alex accepted their offer, he didn't know if he could refuse such a tempting offer or not. How many poor souls were there like that? How many had to go to bed hoping that tomorrow would be a better day? But for these poor people, the tomorrow they dream of never came. Instead, they rot away in the cycle of agony and misery. And all these things made him realize the importance of his position. A king is not just an ordinary person, but is regarded as a prophet of God, and sometimes a symbol of God, who fulfills the dreams, aspirations, and expectations of a people and guides them from their miserable life to a life full of agony and joy. Alex looked at the dark sky filled with red clouds that indicated the approaching storm. This place is not a place where humans live, nor is it a place where living creatures fight for peace. It is a place where chaos is born, a place where darkness evolves and can engulf all of humanity and every other species in the world, turning everyone into puppets of that imbecile who wants nothing more than absolute dominance through destruction. I don't like doing others' work, and I've never liked the feeling of being a weapon trained to do the work in their place and kill their enemies. Alex's principle had always been simple. He would be a simple passerby and would not interfere with others' business unless necessary. He could offer a simple gesture of kindness if possible, unless the situation was complex. But there is an inverse balance that must not be touched. Alex only agreed to attack and kill those who threaten him in this situation, but if the goddess wants him to enter the realm of darkness and end it all, then Alex can only join hands and refuse. But right now, after witnessing such a gruesome and horrendous scene, the humanity that still lingers in me is unable to turn a blind eye. If I don't raise my sword, who knows, tomorrow the scene I'll be witnessing might be that of a close friend of mine being killed and devoured by these scums, or I might be corrupted by these scums and devour another one of my friends. It might be my friends, my relatives, my wives, or my children in the future who would suffer such a gruesome fate if I hesitate. No matter how many I encounter, thousands, 10,000, millions, or trillions, I will brutally crush every single one of them until none of them can raise their heads. My hands and swords may be soiled by their blood, and they may accuse me of being a maniac, but I will not stop cutting them down. It seems that this is my fate. It is my job that I have to do in this life of rebirth. Alex sighed. Seeing how this situation is developing, I think I will have to take advantage of this in the end to settle the matter and end it all, Alex said. What do you think? The system fell silent because it understood Alex's underlying meaning. If there was an opponent that Alex could not defeat with his current power, then there was no other choice but to accept darkness itself. Chapter 294, Murder. Recalling the path, Alex's figure could be seen moving between the dense trees of the forest. Alex was now heading towards the open ground between the forest, which was an important place. There were 3 important places, one where the slaves were, another the temple where offerings were presented, and lastly this was the place he was heading to at the moment. In the middle of the forest, a place had been cleared while many engravings were carved into the ground. Seeing the place, Alex breathed a sigh of relief as it indicated that he was quite close to the place where the temple was located, meaning that he had already reached the middle of the world after traveling a huge distance filled with blood and corpses. Runes were drawn in a circle along with many flag-like formations. It was one of the important points where the part of the sacrificial divinity that radiated throughout the world was transferred to keep the world running. The runes were drawn in blood and there were many circles like this. Between the circles lay a dried corpse with empty eye sockets, and a pool of bloody liquid could be seen. Alex found the liquid quite similar to the place where he fell when he first entered. From afar it looked like red wine that seemed to be used as a conductor of sorts. A small red protruding structure could be seen that seemed to keep a barrier around the place to keep these corpses preserved, but it could have other functions as well. 2 guards seemed to be patrolling the place with utmost attention. Their gaze was as sharp as a dagger looking around. They circled around the place which also separated the 2 of them. Alex thought about using a bow to assassinate them, but the light reflected by it might alert the other, and besides Alex didn't know the full specifications of the circuit. If it turns out to be an offensive or defensive circuit that could create a barrier that he couldn't break, then that would be asking for more trouble, and on top of that Alex wondered if it had an alarm function to alarm the others. So, Alex thought of using his killings to finish off his prey. He didn't enter the clearing but moved between the bushes and trees. He had already discovered that these dogs had an uncanny ability to sniff out humans at a distance of 10 to 15 meters, so Alex kept a suitable distance and waited for the right moment. He was confident in his skill and could cover that distance in the blink of an eye without alerting the prey. Reaching their blind spots and observing the right scenarios, he stepped out from the trees and crouched as he moved towards them. As soon as he reached that strike zone, Alex stood up and leaned his body forward, activating the partial concealment skills to hide his tracks. The man who was humming as he walked suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Alex crawled towards the man and, extending his left hand, he closed his mouth and with quick and agile movements, he slit his throat in one go using his sword like a professional assassin. Blood gushed from his neck, soft moans emanated from his mouth that had been forcefully shut by Alex, and voices died down in his throat. Alex pulled out his sword and did the stabbing test to check if the man had really died or was faking it. Fortunately, the man in front of him was already dead. Alex waited for the opportunity and upon noticing the other man approaching, he threw the body to the ground. Thud. The sound of a body smashing against the ground echoed everywhere and was heard by the other man. He immediately turned around and abandoned his position, running towards the source of the sound. Upon reaching the crime scene, he found his friend's corpse lying on the ground with no one in sight. Alex had already retreated to a safe distance and was now standing in the blind spot of the man screaming in panic. Melko, the man called out his friend's name and crouched down and placed his finger on his body as he searched for traces. His hand passed over the cleanly slit throat along with the multiple stab wounds on his body that were dripping blood. Who killed you? Who is that bastard? I will get my revenge, the man muttered with a tear in his eyes. Hiss. The man who was mourning his only friend was suddenly attacked and stabbed in the back. PFFT. Blood pours out of his lips and he stares at his chest where a sword emerged from and looks up to see Alex with a horrified expression. Alex looked at the boy skeptically and asked, "Are you an idiot or did you also sell your brain to the darkness while swearing loyalty? How can a dead person speak and say the killer's name?" Instead of asking him, "Shouldn't I be looking for the killer in the surroundings?" the man didn't have the strength to utter any words and just stared at the killer's face in disbelief. His consciousness was slowly fading away, but Alex's mocking words infuriated him greatly, and he clenched his heart and immediately collapsed. Alex killed the guy and looked at the magic circle. Alex was still undecided whether to destroy it or not. Thinking it over, Alex decided to disrupt the circuit first to stop it from working. He took out the carefully arranged flags and burned the corpse, but even after this, the barrier remained. Alex didn't know whether destroying it would alert the enemies or not, but he didn't want to take any risks. The magic circle could no longer function properly due to Alex's actions, so there was no need to take any more risks. Chapter 295, Alex vs. Wolfgang. A few hours have passed since Alex disrupted the magic circle in the forest clearing. On his way, he was chased by a horde of monsters. Escaping from them, Alex found another tribe full of old witches similar to the one guarding the cave entrance. He fought another bloody battle and piled corpses on top of each other to cleanse his own, which attracted another group of servants of darkness whom he crushed and tortured until they screamed, calling out the name of his ancestors and revealing some information. Alex continued on his way and moved towards the center. His current destination was the place where humans were imprisoned. After reaching the place, he saw another huge cave with a wide passage. It seemed to be full of darkness, lifeless, full of mystery and chills. It could be one of the best places to film a horror movie. The mouth of the cave that opened up looked like a hellish gate that was used to suck the life out of people. The only thing missing was the flames of hell. The deathly silence of the place was occasionally interrupted by Alex's faint footsteps as he walked carefully. The area was quite dark and damp, along with cold winds blowing from inside, sending shivers down one's spine. Hardly had Alex entered the cave when he felt the presence of another being watching him. In the darkness of the cave, its green-colored eyes were glowing brightly. Had it been anyone else, he might have wet his pants, but for Alex, it had now become an everyday occurrence. Alex created small orbs of fire that revolved around him. There was a huge, beastly monster that was 12 feet long. It had 4 thick, log-like arms and a large mouth that was wide open and filled with sharp teeth and canines. Its 2 eyes glowed, giving Alex a menacing look, and howled, giving Alex a threatening warning. From Alex's point of view, the being looked rather cute, as it reminded him of the alien from the popular cartoon series 10. Seeing Alex calmly looking at it, it moved its huge thick trunk-like arms towards Alex, getting closer and closer to him. "Try to catch it, you 4-armed monster," Alex said, and threw his hand towards him, signaling the attack. Boom! The large fire orbs emitting dazzling embers charged through the air like a ball thrown by the player, and touching the monster, they burst into an explosion that covered its entire body in fire. Krghhhh. It roared and groaned in pain, and its entire body was on fire. Alex made fire spears and fired them at it, which pierced its entire body. Roaring in pain, it rolled on the ground trying to put out the fire and soon crashed heavily into the wall, shaking a part of the cave. Alex moved away from it as it roared in pain and soon died after being consumed by the fire. Alex walked further inside and the place became darker. Alex ran into another one but finished it off in one shot with a small fireball. Point destruction. A highly condensed mass of compressed fire exploded and engulfed the entire enemy body in flames. It was similar to a grenade and was perfect for the occasion. The monster that was on fire roared in pain and ran around chaotically and ended its life when Alex cut off its head. Alex's attack attracted a lot of attention, and soon, many monsters were charging towards him. Alex was a little confused by the sudden scenario, as he remembered that this place was used to store slaves and sacrifices and crush them before killing them. So why on earth was this place lurking with these strange monsters? Alex didn't know the forces of the other side, and if his count was correct, he had killed around 180 servants of darkness or humans who had accepted the other side so far, and it was best not to talk about the number of beasts, monsters, old hags and ugly bald men he had killed so far. Alex, after seeing the passage where the monsters came out from, took the opportunity to attack first and snapped his fingers, and threw out a small wisp of fire. The small wisp of fire landed on the ground and drew a small circle of fire, after which Alex snapped his fingers with a smile. Flames of the sea. A column of flames rose from the circle and frantically gushed out, taking the shape of the waves of the sea, and gushed towards the monster. The monsters couldn't react and were burned to a crisp by Alex, leaving behind their grilled charcoal body that can be used for barbecuing. The cave was quite large, and Alex had even lost track of the distance, but he was sure it must be at least a few kilometers. Many groups of monsters attacked him, but all of them were burned to death. Inside the dark passage, Alex noticed a dim, bright light that illuminated the darkness temporarily. When Alex came out, he saw that the passage was enlarged and illuminated by faint cracks all around. Alex's eyes sparkled as he saw a huge door from where lava was flowing upside down, separating a part of the cave. Alex rubbed his chin and picked up a rock to throw into the lava, and the rock immediately burned. What a unique door. It reminds me of the Arabian Nights. Alex chuckled and looked for some magic circle. He found one at the base of the rock, but he wasted no time in finding out and decided to force his way through. Alex compressed a sphere of wind, threw lava and instantly froze it and stepped inside it. The ice melted quickly and soon lava began to flow from the top down. There was a narrow bridge over the sea of lava, and it was supported by pillars that were sprouting from the lava. On the opposite ends were huge prisons filled with humans, elves and even dwarves, and all of them were unconscious with expressions of horror. When Alex crossed the bridge, he noticed that all the people in prison there were children. Guarding the prison was a huge, ugly and disgusting creature, whose very sight was enough to turn your stomach. What an unfortunate pup, the monster laughed with a calm tone, but its eyes were anything but calm. Chapter 296, Alex vs. Wolfgang 2. People worship beauty and even reward the most beautiful people by holding a contest. While humans seek beauty, these people born from darkness seem to be the opposite of this preconceived notion. Every time he encountered a new being, he felt that these people sought ugliness as if ugliness was a reward, and they tried very hard to seek the peak of ugliness. It wasn't the appearance, but the overall look. The creature in front of Alex looked absolutely vile and rotten to the core. It had a body filled with long tentacles like hands with claws at the end. Its face resembles that of a disfigured wolf, and if this wasn't enough, its body had dark gray feathers that looked like that of a chicken. It looked as if it was a mixed hybrid of several types of animals, making it even more disgusting. Alex felt sorry for the people trapped in the cage. Even if they managed to survive and escape from that place, that guy's nightmare might haunt them for the rest of their lives. Alex looked at his level, and he was half a step into the legendary rank, and the aura emanating from him gave him the creeps. The wolf chicken, whose name was Wolfgang, stared at Alex with a pair of dark and cold eyes and muttered in a rough and hoarse voice, "Since you dare to come here, you should just stay put and await your end." His voice was authoritative and he looked down at Alex from above. Alex stepped forward after crossing the bridge and spoke in an authoritative tone, "Let me tell you something. Many said words similar to yours, but the funny thing is that there was no one who could survive the next hour. We'll see about that." In the next moment, Wolfgang stood up and growled. He extended his large wolf paw and scratched the ground as he walked. A powerful coercion emerged from his body that was starting to push Alex back, but Alex just stood there nonchalantly without moving a single step back. He moved towards Alex step by step, and a strong mountain-like pressure fell on Alex, trying to push him to his knees. The ground beneath Alex began to crack. Wolfgang gave a crazy grin, showing his fang, slowly but steadily trying to break Alex bit by bit, making him fall into the river of despair and then devouring him whole. He loved to see despair and break the spirit of others, but Alex stood tall and straight until he was close. Bam! A fireball exploded in Wolfgang's face, forcing him to stop. The fire engulfed Wolfgang, but before it could explode and cause damage, a strong breath came out of him and extinguished the fire. There was still some fire burning above its maw, but it simply opened its maw wide and sucked in the air along with the flames and spat flames to the side. After this, it gave Alex a mocking smile, and Alex responded by raining fireballs down on it. Several shots were fired in an instant that directly hit its face and blew Wolfgang away. Boom! Bam! Boom! Alex launched a series of attacks that continued to suppress the opponent, but as if there was no damage, a long shrill howl filled the entire space. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr. Foolish brat, I'm resistant to fire. Swish! Like a swift wind blowing, the huge figure leapt into the air and appeared before Alex and waved its paw. Alex raised his sword to defend himself from the sharp claws. Wolfgang's eyes flashed and he swung another claw at Alex's face. Alex turned his head and narrowly avoided it, but at that moment something stirred next to his chest. Alex reacted quickly and pulled his sword out of his paws and tried to avoid it, but it was a little too late. As Alex stepped back a few meters, sharp claw marks appeared on his chest from which blood was pouring out. The wound gave Alex a burning sensation. Alex shook off the pain and looked at Wolfgang, wondering what heat was causing his chest. He was surprised to see a small wing covered in sharp feathers heading towards the inside of Wolfgang's body. It was a little bigger than the chicken wing, but it was similar. The feathers were already bristling like sharp blades, giving it a menacing look. Alex's figure appeared in the circle. With his sword in his hand, he attacked Wolfgang. A bright crescent-shaped beam of light suddenly flew out of the air, and it was extremely sharp. Wolfgang stared at the attack, and as the beam came closer, he opened his jaws wide and mana began to gather in his mouth. The mana churned, and soon a beam of light shot out from the mouth, colliding with the crescent arc and completely devouring and destroying it. The bright beam of light extended straight towards the ceiling and destroyed a part of it. Alex dodged the attack and raised his sword to slash the arc of blades towards Wolfgang, keeping some distance. Wolfgang howled and turned his head. The beam of light traveled according to the rotation of his head and destroyed the blades. Alex, who was running, took the opportunity to enter the blind spot. Alex found the opportunity, pounced on him from behind and slashed with his sword, trying to cut him into two halves. Wolfgang reacted quickly and raised his claws to stop the attack, but a warning sign arose in his heart. His claws managed to block Alex's attack, but they couldn't stop the sharp energy of the aura from breaking through the defense and piercing the physical entity. While as he hurriedly dodged, a claw was cut off and a part of his chest feather was cut off, opening an alarming wound on his chest. Blood continued to flow and Wolfgang forced Alex away. Dark fumes appeared over his wound, and it began to heal at a rapid pace, and the blood flow stopped, forming a clot. Chapter 297, Alex vs. Wolfgang 3. The environment in this pocket world was most suitable for the dark elements, and the power of the light elements was suppressed by the world trying to prevent it from causing severe damage to the creature of darkness. A human who could use light magic was usually suppressed in such an environment, and the damage was reduced. But he found it hard to believe that Alex's attack was causing significant damage and was not affected by the dark elements in the slightest. Wolfgang cautiously observed Alex's sword, which had a faint glow. The aura imbued with the blessings of light could penetrate physical defense and launch lethal attacks. If it weren't for the protection of his feathers, which acted as armor, he would be severely injured and cut. Wolfgang's breathing began to increase considerably and his body began to radiate darkness and chills. Alex was wary of Wolfgang's power. Alex's strength had been suffering greatly and he wasn't in very good shape either. It didn't matter, he was human after all, and even he had limits. It was already more than enough for him to walk after his soul was hit once, but a backlash slowly began to set in the form of a constant headache. The aura of darkness began to run out of control and covered Alex, beginning to engulf him like mad flames trying to burn him. Alex realized that he was surrounded by a black flame that was trying to engulf him into nothingness. Still, he didn't panic, instead staring at Wolfgang, who was exerting all of his strength to kill Alex immediately. His face was filled with exhaustion. He still had a few trump cards left to use later, but after seeing the situation, it was best to go all out. Alex exhaled and took a deep breath to calm himself down. Goddess buff. A sharp burst of aura erupted from Alex and her entire body began to radiate brilliance and warmth like a sun. Wolfgang, who was in the midst of terrifying lightning, suddenly felt a terrifying breath. The light and heat radiating from Alex suppressed the power of his black flame. The flames of darkness covering Alex instantly disappeared. As Alex took a step, the ground began to crack, and as his strength eroded and swept away everything, a shockwave spread over the pool of lava and began to spiral out of control. What terrifying strength is this? His entire body seemed to radiate godlike holiness. Who is he? Why does he have such strength and such a sacred blessing? Countless thoughts flashed through Wolfgang's mind. He had lived a century after being born like this, and had seen many things in his life. Naturally, he had devoured many creatures that tried to overpower him with their light elemental power, but they were all devoured by him. His strength may be at the half-step legendary rank, but he has even given many legendary rankers a beating thanks to all sorts of unorthodox skills. The wound on Alex's chest began to heal at an astonishing rate, and the gaps closed up without a scar. A small corona of light manifested above his head and piercing rays of light emerged from his body, shaking the darkness. The rays that emerged from his body were enough to cause burns all over Wolfgang's body. The space around him began to rumble due to the enormous power, giving Wolfgang a chill he hadn't felt in a while. Alex's current brilliant appearance was enough to destroy Wolfgang's confidence in winning. The opponent had a terrifying force. The power of the light element was the nemesis of the dark element creature. Alex leaped forward and waved his sword, and a beam of light that reflected colorful rays erupted from his body. His strength and spirit increased greatly in an instant. Alex's sword pointed at Wolfgang, and a magic circle appeared beneath Wolfgang that showed countless luminous dots that mysteriously connected. Wolfgang was horrified to find himself trapped in the prison of light, and the darkness emanating from his body was overwhelmed and suppressed. Prison of the Sacred, Alex muttered and swung his sword at Wolfgang, who was struggling mightily to escape. A pillar of light emerged and turned into a ball of light in an instant, and the blink of an eye enveloped Wolfgang. A destructive explosiveness could be heard continuously coming from the light, shaking the entire place. Wolfgang howled and slashed with his claw, attempting to break the ball of light, but his claws were injured in the attempt. Screams of despair and agony rang out from within the ball of light, which could send shivers down everyone's spines. The entire area was covered by its loud, resounding noise. Wolfgang condensed his strength and formed a beam from his mouth. The beam opened up a small path, but as soon as it dissipated, the dense light covering it covered it again. An idea came to his mind: if he increased the power of his lightning, he could create a small hole in the dense wall and take the opportunity to get out of there. Wolfgang raised his claws and all the feathers on his body stood up for an instant. Many small wings appeared and began to flutter, trying to shake off the power of light. A strong power of darkness erupted from his body and collided with the wall of light. Although he was instantly suppressed, he did not give up and opened his mouth. A small orb of black flames appeared in his mouth and swirled vigorously. Inhaling deeply and inflating his stomach, he fired out a beam of the condensed flame of darkness to the maximum. DUSSSH. Terrifying energy erupted from his mouth, destroying everything in its path. The wall imprisoning him finally opened enough for him to escape, but as soon as the wall broke, the figure of a man who projected a big smile after yawning appeared before his eyes, along with words that could haunt him even in his afterlife. "You've taken long enough. I've been waiting for you to come out." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298, Alex vs. Wolfgang 4. While the prison of the Sacrosanct was holding back and suppressing Wolfgang, who was trying his best to break out of the prison that was restricting him, Alex, who was outside, was trying to condense his strength to deliver a final blow. There was no chance for a second chance, and Alex needed to end it all now. The goddess enhancement was one of the most important trump cards he had in his arsenal, and naturally, it wouldn't last long. Although all of his strength had been restored and he felt refreshed, a greater sense of tiredness and exhaustion would assail him once it was over, as it consumed too much mana to maintain the state. And on top of that, it wasn't of any help when it came to soul damage, and instead of keeping it at bay, the pain in his head was getting stronger and stronger. If before the pain was like someone hitting his head with a hammer, now it was like 5 or 6 workers were drilling into his head with machines. He didn't know if it was due to the element of darkness lingering somewhere in his body that was constantly clashing against a blessing due to goddess bluff, or it was something else, but his condition was really bad to the point that his vision would blur occasionally. He felt dizzy and annoyed. "I'll end this in one blow," Alex muttered as he breathed heavily. Moving forward, he clenched his fist as he transferred his strength. Light began to gather in his fist. A bright reddish aura with a golden glow covered his entire fist and then spread towards his entire arm. The light began to shine more brightly, like a beautiful rising sun at dawn. Alex gritted his teeth to shake off the blurry vision and immediately took his stance. Cold sweats could be seen pouring down from his forehead like a waterfall. Alex noticed that the prison wall in front of him was being torn apart by a dark-colored beam. The force that erupted from it was quite terrifying, and not only did it pierce a hole in the ceiling, but it also crashed into the wall and destroyed a narrow passage from which lava began to slowly pour out. "This bastard doesn't know how to stay unnoticed." Alex gritted his teeth and waited for Wolfgang to appear. Alex looked at his pathetic appearance and half-burned body with a dry look, as if the life had been sucked out of him. A playful smile emerged from Alex's lips and he said, "You've taken long enough. I've been waiting for you to come out. Since you're eager for death, let me hand it to you." Alex muttered and shifted forward, and his image disappeared from its position. Wolfgang froze at that moment. He didn't avoid his gaze, nor could he give it away, because Alex was already in front of him at an incredible speed, fast enough for his eyes to catch a glimpse of the figure. Alex's entire body erupted with a dazzling light, and Alex's fist slammed into Wolfgang's head, and his upper body suddenly exploded. Alex's fist was like a sharp knife to decapitate him. His head along with his neck exploded into many flesh and blood particles, completely soaking Alex's face. Pieces of brain gray matter flew through the air. Wolfgang's body tried to react by throwing claws and sharp knife-like feathers towards Alex, but it was all in vain as Alex easily avoided it and hit Wolfgang's body, which flew backwards and fell into the boiling lava. Disgusting. Alex stuck out his tongue with a distorted expression. The taste of the pieces of flesh and that blood that entered Alex's mouth made him want to vomit. The taste was similar to that of food thrown away and left in the trash for many days. Alex spat and headed towards the huge prison cage. With a swing of his sword, he cut the prison in two. Alex saw 28 unconscious people. Of them, 12 were humans, 6 were elves and the rest were dwarves and some kind of beastmen, and they were all quite young. Alex was shocked to see 3 people from the academy that he didn't know. Everyone had pained expressions on their faces and tears could be seen falling from some children. Only God knows what kind of nightmare they have suffered. Alex waves his hands and a golden ray of light springs forth and falls upon them. A warm and pleasant feeling washed over them, and their pained expression seemed to ease to some extent. Their expressions became happy, as if they were now in dreamland, but soon their brows furrowed, and when they opened their eyes to look at the dark space, the dam of tears began to burst forth again. Don't worry, I have come here to rescue you all. You are all safe for the moment. Alex's voice echoed in the dark space, and soon several fireball orbs lit up, illuminating the entire space. All their eyes fell on Alex, who seemed to shine like an angel before their eyes. Alex-senpai. The 3 academy students rubbed their eyes to see if it was true or not along with the others. They all looked around for the monster but they didn't find it anywhere. As soon as everyone saw Alex, a ray of hope appeared due to Alex's presence. They fell to their knees and kept their heads down with their hair disheveled and their eyes teary and hot. Sob. Sob. Sniff. Sniff. We've been starving for several days now. They don't even give us water and we rely on magic to get water to drink. Please get us out of this place. I want to see the light. It feels suffocating. Alex heard the loud screams and pleas, leaving his ears deaf. His back was already sweating profusely, thinking of how to convince them since most of them were children. Don't cry, I'll get you out. Don't cry. As Alex tried to deal with them, a small and weak 14-year-old half-elf girl named Shrestha stepped forward and pulled Alex's sleeves. With a crying face, she said, "Brother, my father works for a noble in Zenith. If you save me I promise to reward you handsomely and even recommend you to the noble house." Hearing the girl's words, the others tried to find a reason to force Alex to help them, as most of them couldn't believe that Alex would protect all of them in case of an adverse situation. A dwarf boy came up, patted his chest and promised to ask his father to make him a good weapon. While a girl with 2 pointed cat ears and a tail promises to become his slave if he saves her. Many of the beastmen here present were slaves who were going to be trafficked and somehow got caught in this situation. Some of her sisters and friends were already kidnapped and didn't come back. Alex looked at the cute and innocent cheerful gazes and felt as if his heart had been cut by a sharp knife. A strong flame of desire to protect these children surged in his heart, and he clenched his fist tightly. Chapter 299, Rescue. Although Alex sympathized with them a lot, their shrill screams made his head explode in pain. So, trying to put on the most sincere smile he could, Alex muttered, "Trust your big brother. Your safety is my responsibility. With me, no one will hurt you." The children's eyes sparkled. The 3 academy students were a bit skeptical about it, but they decided to believe him since they couldn't find the monster guarding the cage, and upon looking around they found traces of battle, which meant that Alex had taken care of the monster. "Okay, now stop crying. I'll cast a healing spell on you, so line up and please don't cry, otherwise we'll attract the attention of those evil monsters." "Shut up," Alex muttered, putting a finger on his lips. The students complied, and putting their fingers on their lips they stood up obediently. Alex cast a series of spells and took the opportunity of Goddess Buff to give them buffs that would last for 2 hours. Alex took out a bag inside which were some weapons he grabbed along the way. Alex took out daggers and gave one to each for safety. Alex walked towards her classmates and asked about their identities and strength. "Alex-senpai, I'm Tina. I'm a mage and I have the rank of disciple." A girl with pink hair stood tall. Behind her were 2 boys, Harrison and Gaston. One was a warrior and the latter a scholar mage. Alex noticed their strength but coughed in embarrassment when they addressed him as senpai. "I'm in the same group as you, so why do you address me as if you're older?" Alex-senpai's strength is far above the league. "Only a person with great willpower and strength could dare to fight like you. I can sense that you have epic rank strength. Because of that, I think you're a bit older than us," Gaston spoke with shining eyes. Alex rubbed his chin, nodding in satisfaction, but nearly fell on his butt when Gaston thought him older. My age is similar to yours, so please don't address me as if I'm older. No, you're senpai. It's a matter of respect. Alex couldn't shake his determination and sighed deeply. Kids nowadays are too stubborn and hard to handle, Alex muttered to himself. I wanted to ask how many of you were there initially. There were about 100 here, and a few days ago all the adults were taken away by those monsters, leaving everyone under the age of 20. We're lucky to survive. If we were just a year older, Tina stammered at the end as tears welled up in her eyes, thinking of the horrible fate that could have befallen her. Alex senpai, how are you going to get us out of here? You're alone, and we can all be a burden to you if a large group comes out to attack us, Tina asked worriedly. Alex's expression stiffened a bit. He was pondering the matter as well. He knew the horror of the outside. The place was filled with enemies that would pounce on you and attack out of nowhere. He had also heard from one of the fellow torturers that they could smell humans, and especially children, who are quite tender and soft to them. There were many small loopholes around. Under the pool of reddish liquid, a door could be found to enter and exit. Alex had found a few along his way, and the quickest one from here was about an hour and a half away. He could cover it in a matter of a few minutes if he used a flight spell, but with ease, he had to walk to that point. Moreover, the sacrificial temple was very close. Entering the cave, Alex saw the great temple, which looked menacing from afar. Listen, is there anyone besides these three who knows how to fight, like some simple spells or skills? Alex asked. Everyone shook their heads. Alex noticed that many of the group were still not awake. It seems that I can only rely on myself and the mana sensors. System, it seems that these people's lives are in your hands. Alex put all the responsibility on his system. If any figure is not found on the mana sensor map, then all the blame will fall on the system. In the meantime, the system wants to curse this shitty guy, but because of Alex's headache, he didn't curse this guy and showed a big heart. Alex gave them instructions and taught them some basic things for survival. With the help of the goddess enhancement, they were wrapped with the protection of the blessing of light so that they are not afraid of being harmed by the mana of darkness in the surroundings. Okay, follow me now and don't make any noise, Alex advised them and took the lead. Tina, Harrison, and Gaston acted as second in command to keep the others under control. Alex found no more monsters in the cave, but as soon as they stepped out, Alex saw some people. Hide in the cave, I'll take out a few for now, Alex said. Take me with you, I'll be of some help, Harrison insisted, but Alex flatly refuted him. Alex walked slowly and stood behind a tree. He pulled out a bow from his back, and the sight of three figures flashed across his eyes. Alex summoned 3 arrows and fired. Swish! 3 bodies fell with a crash. Alex surveyed from a distance and walked around the area to clear out the mobs while keeping his sight on the mana sensor. Seeing that there was no one around, Alex walked towards the cave. On his way, he stood on top of a rock and observed the temple that was covered in lava. Not noticing any abnormality in his sight, Alex jumped off the rock, but when he reached the cave, he felt a huge surge of mana followed by a huge explosion from afar. Boo-hoo. Chapter 300, let me give you a deal. Not to mention the students, even Alex was startled by such a huge explosion. Alex almost tripped as the ground shook due to the tremors that spread everywhere. Alex turned his gaze towards the temple and his eyes widened. The top of it had been destroyed by an explosion, and a huge mushroom shape could be seen rising from the top along with the expanding flames. The explosion was quite large, and from the surge of mana, Alex could infer that it was an attack from a legendary rank or someone who had similar or higher strength. The figure of the person appeared before his eyes and his back was drenched in sweat. Is he hurt? That madman, why did he attack so soon? Instead of rescuing the people, why the hell did that bastard go straight for the boss monster? With a heavy heart, Alex ran to check on the condition of the children. As he got closer, he saw a few children sitting on their knees and covering their ears. They all seemed to be scared and their bodies were shaking in fear. Even 3 students had pale expressions. Due to the ground shaking, dust and debris were falling from the top of the cave. If this keeps up, Alex was sure that the cave will collapse soon. Seeing Alex coming towards them, Harrison asked in a panicked tone, "What was that? Someone is fighting in the temple. Do we have to leave here now?" Alex shouted and snapped everyone out of their fear. Alex led them away from the cave. It hadn't been 5 minutes since they started running when another explosion occurred. Alex's footsteps stopped as he sensed the danger. Without wasting a second, He pulled out his sword and shouted, "Everyone, get on the ground immediately." Everyone followed his order without question, and Alex stepped forward and stabbed his sword into the ground. Boom! His sword erupted with a bright golden light, and a dome-shaped barrier appeared covering everyone present. As everyone wondered what was going on, the ground shook, and as they lifted their chins to look ahead into the darkness, their eyes widened in horror. A bright light erupted from afar that illuminated the entire place, followed by strong shockwaves that came towards them, sweeping away everything in their path. Like waves crashing on the shore, the shockwaves, one after another, hit Alex's golden barrier. The trees beside him were uprooted and blown away by the wind. Some were shattered and others were simply uprooted and thrown into the air. One of the tree's thick timbers fell on his dome and bounced off due to the impact. The round of explosions eventually slowed down, but Alex didn't withdraw his barrier, and as he looked up at the sky, he finally caught a glimpse of Hurt. Leaving behind a trail like a comet wrapped in dark flames, his figure flew through the air and crashed some distance away from that place. Suddenly, bad feelings arose from his heart. "Ah! There's another bug here." A loud, harsh sound was heard, sending shivers down everyone's spine. Alex looked up subconsciously and his pupil dilated. A dark, black figure stood on the air, staring at them with an apathetic expression. Its skin was black, but it wasn't entirely disgusting. It was wearing a cloak, and Alex found no claws or tentacles sprouting from its body. Alex didn't even need the eyes of truth to recognize the man. He was a true creature of darkness. It was Aryan, at the early mythic rank, who seemed to be in charge of this place. Alex almost cried tears of blood. He could escape from his grasp, but the people behind him would die horribly, and besides, he didn't know the current condition of Hurt, whose entire body seemed to be engulfed in flames and was sent flying somewhere. "Your body seems blessed. Offering you to my god would yield good results. I can't believe a golden goose has entered my nest," he chuckled. "You still don't want to give in?" he asked, raising his voice as he saw Alex's cold gaze. He extended his hand and a large whip of darkness appeared in his hand. Holding it, he struck the golden dome. Crackle! With a single strike, the top portion of the dome cracked. "Oh, it seems pretty sturdy, doesn't it? Let's see how many hits you can take." Alex gritted his teeth and tried to reinforce the dome. He wanted to buy some time for both himself and Hurt. If Hurt appeared, he would entrust these children to him and engage in battle with Aryan, and in case Hurt didn't appear, he was preparing to land a blow on Aryan and shake him off. He was attempting to form a fission bomb condensed with a light element that would surely cause severe damage if hit. Alex needs the strength of at least a mythic realm to use that kind of spell that needs precise control, but finding himself in this kind of situation, there was no other way but to use the attack now. A cruel smile appeared on Aryan's lips as he slashed his hands and whipped the dome at will. Every time Aryan struck, Alex felt a huge burden on his shoulders and was forced to kneel. He looked at Aryan's expression and could see that he wasn't taking him seriously. In his eyes, they were all nothing less than insects that he could crush at any moment. Large cracks appeared all over the dome, and it was just one hit away from breaking into pieces. Instead of breaking it, Aryan gave a swipe with his whip and spoke with a smile. "Shall I give you a deal? If that golden-haired boy surrenders himself, then I promise that I won't harm you and I'll let you all go." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.